Production, are we live? Oh, there we go.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the September 17th SANDAG joint meeting of the Transportation Regional Planning and Borders Committees. Before we get started, I wanted to share that we will be hosting simultaneous translation of this meeting into Spanish. I wanted to introduce our translator with Spanish language instruction. Carlos.
Thank you, Supervisor. Buenos días y bienvenidos a la sesión conjunta de los comités de transporte, planeación regional y fronteras. Como se ha indicado, se está ofreciendo el servicio de interpretación simultánea para esta reunión. Para hacer uso del mismo, por favor, desplácese a la parte inferior de su pantalla de Zoom donde aparecen sus controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación. Aparece un globito terráqueo y seleccione español o Spanish. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Good morning once again. We do have interpretation available as the supervisor indicated. To use the feature, please scroll down to the bottom of the Zoom screen where your meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and then select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app on cell phone, tablet, or other mobile device, press the ellipsis, the three dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on Mute Original Audio to not hear the original Spanish flow in the background. Thank you and gracias.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to ask the clerk, Francesca Webb, to confirm that we have a quorum of the three committees. Ms. Webb?
Thank you, Chair. We do have a quorum for all three committees.
Thank you. I'd like to remind the members and public that on our process for both member and public comments, the primary members will be using their cameras and we will take live public comments. Members are asked to turn on their cameras when they have a comment or question and they will recognize you. I'm also going to ask our legal counsel, Ms. John Kirk, to provide a quick reminder on how the public comments will work. Before I turn it to Mr. Kirk, I'm going to also ask members, because we have so many people on this call today and so many committees, when we do a vote, can you please state your last name and then your yes or no answer, please? That would be helpful for the clerk and for myself as we're trying to keep track. Thank you, Mr. Kirk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In order to provide live comments at today's meeting, you can join today's Zoom meeting through the link or by dialing one of the numbers from your phone that are provided on the cover page of today's meeting agenda. When public comments are called for on an item, if you're on the Zoom platform, click on the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. That's at the top right of the screen, and the chair will call on you by the name you've provided. If you're participating by telephone, press *9 on your telephone, which will activate the raise hand function to indicate your desire to speak. The chair will call on you by the last three digits of your telephone number. The organizers will ask you to unmute when you are called on. The instructions for providing live comments at today's meeting are also on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of SANDAG's website at www.sandag.org. All comments, whether emailed or live, will be made a part of today's meeting record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. Item number 1, public comments, communications, member comments. Under this agenda item, you'll be limited to 5 public speakers. Members of the public shall have the opportunity to address the Transportation Committee or any of these committees on any issues within the jurisdiction of SANDAG that is not on the agenda. Public speakers are limited to 3 minutes or less per person. Committee members will also provide information announcement on this agenda item. If the number of public comments under this agenda item exceed 5, additional public comments will be taken at the end of the agenda. Subject of previous agenda items may not again be addressed under public comment. I'm going to ask the members of the public who wish to offer public comment not related to a matter of today's agenda to please raise your hand at this time so we can call on you. Madam Clerk, do we have any
No, Chair, I don't. Oh, I apologize. One hand just went up from the public. Tim Belash, you can go ahead when you're ready. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, just a short question. I am going through the different SANDAG meetings. I've been attending some of the public ones and apologize for this question. Is there a SANDAG committee dealing with the impact of infrastructure related to housing and water use input for your planning? And I'm sorry, did you hear the question?
Yes, sir. But usually in public comment, we don't
Okay, so
respond.
I just-
So why
yeah.
don't I ask you a question, if I can ask you to put your information on the chat, and then what I'll have is one of the staff members from SANDAG to respond to you. How about that?
Thank you, appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, I think Mayor Gasterland?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Nora. I just want to say I'm interested in the answer to that question as well. So when the answer comes in, please also let me know. Thank you.
You are welcome. We're going to go ahead and ask the staff to go ahead and report back on that. Any other members or, oh, Ms. Fox?
Supervisor, oh, sorry.
Good morning. Good morning, committee chairs and members. I'm Ann Fox. I'm sitting in for our district director, Gustavo Delarda, this morning. And I do have a few items to share out today. Last week, the California Transportation Commission appointed San Diego's new transportation commissioner. I'd like to extend a big congratulations to our newest transportation commissioner, Clarissa Falcon. Many of you may know Clarissa from her work in State Senate or even the San Diego Regional and South County EDCs. So we very much look forward to working with her going forward. Also, a huge thank you to Chris Kehoe for her past service on CTC. Her leadership has definitely been impactful and guided us certainly in the right direction. Next, we have this Saturday is Coastal Cleanup Day, and Caltrans is ready to take your trash. We'll have free dumpsters available at 4 locations in San Diego and a couple in Imperial County, all towards preventing illegal dumping and highway debris. The 4 locations in San Diego County will be at a few of our park and ride lots from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. That being in Mira Mesa, in Carlsbad, La Costa, off of La Costa Ave, National City off Sweetwater Road, and Lemon Grove Avenue near 94. Caltrans will also be collecting, or we will be collecting everyday oversized household items and debris free of charge. Please no hazardous waste, no weird liquids, no batteries, no electronics, any of those things. We're not able to accept those. Also on Saturday, many of our own employees will actually be participating in a cleanup, several cleanup events with I Love a Clean San Diego, happening in Chula Vista, Vista San Marcos area, San Diego, and even in Lakeside. On Thursday, so yesterday, we also jump-started our cleanup activities with all of our maintenance staff and all hands on deck efforts, picking up trash throughout the day, throughout the regions. Hopefully you saw us out there working on that. We will have all of this info on our website as far as locations, dumpster locations, et cetera, where those are. We'll have them all posted on our websites and out there on our social media. And then finally, I'd like to thank MTS and SANDAG for the opportunity to be part of the Mid-Coast Trolley Extension Tour and the ride up to UTC last week. It was a fun afternoon, and certainly this is a great new asset to San Diego's transportation system. So congrats on that. That's it for me. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. Next item up is our Chief Executive Officer, provided by Hassan. Hassan, buenos dias. Good morning.
Thank you. Buenos dias. Good morning, Chair Vargas, Mayor Salas, Mayor Dedina, committee members. Good morning to all of you. It's good to be with you today. And welcome back after the summer recess. We were planning to have you live in the office this September, and we decided to wait a bit longer, given the COVID cases. But soon we will let you know when it's time to come back to the office for meetings. I want to inform you that all of our staff were back in the office on September 7th. All 400, some of them, and I'm proud of them. It's adjusting to this new reality is, it sounds strange to say this, but after 18 months of working remotely, getting back together, I think is exciting for some of them, especially the young one. Those employees who we hired that have never been in SANDAG's offices. There were some smiles, and it's not popular with many others who wanted to have the flexibility. But I said before, in general, COVID tested our, our ability to move forward in this world. And as a nation, as people, as a region, there were disruption and challenges and uncertainties. But we're trying to do our best to cope with this situation by making sure our employees are safe, making sure we work together through the difficult challenges that we face, because this agency needs to deliver for the 3.3 million San Diegans a lot of work. And we believe the best way to deliver it is for us to discuss, interact, and be open to the public as a public agency. So we are open for business, open to the public, and I want to thank my staff for doing that. I know I'm not very popular with them right now, but I still love them, and I think they're a great group of people. And I look forward to seeing you in person here soon. Let me want to recognize Mas Dili Hispanidad or Hispanic American Heritage Month, which we observe from September 15th through October 15th. Yesterday was also an important date to note. September 16th is Mexico's National Day or Independence Day. It is important to acknowledge the significant contribution Latinx people have made to the culture, community, and economy of our amazing binational region. I'm proud of SANDAG employees who celebrate our diversity, showing our commitment to advance equity and inclusion. Yesterday also marked the conclusion of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is the holiest day in the Hebrew year, known as the Day of Adjournment. People of the Jewish faith fast and spend the day in prayer and asking for forgiveness. And this holiday is about thoughtful self-examination. I want to wish everyone who observed Yom Kippur a very easy fast and a good final feeling. Let me turn to the programs. As I reported to you, we had many agency priorities. And these priorities change as we go. It's a dynamic process, but these priorities are important for the region. One of them is the regional transportation plan, the 5 big moves, and the environmental impact report. We are very close to coming to the board of directors and coming to you, asking you for both approving the regional transportation plan and certifying the legal document, the environmental impact report. The environmental impact report is available for public comments through October 11th. And I just want to clarify, and I appreciate Mir Hibner yesterday discussion about the AIR. The AIR discusses alternatives. And the alternatives sometimes go to the extreme, middle, from no project. It's a legal document, it's a requirement. A discussion of this alternative does not mean that this alternative is going to become part of the plan. Eventually, you will pick an alternative based on all the data. Eventually, the staff will recommend an alternative. But that doesn't change the discussion we had in our regional transportation plan. I'm also happy to report to you that this month, we're going to start a very extensive public outreach on the plan, an educational process, a process that will inspire and assure Sandiagans that their future is bright when it comes to transportation and housing and the linkages between two. In fact, we'll start this educational process. Tomorrow, we will be joining I Love a Clean San Diego for their coastal cleanup day. Be many events. You're gonna see more of outreach in the plan in big events, in basketball games, baseball games, universities, and we'll talk more in detail about this. But the idea here is San Diegans deserve to know what this region is planning. Many people would say, well, you know, why don't you just have community meetings and outreach meetings? And that's good, and we're having that, and we did many of that. But we are talking here about reaching, you know, and instead of reaching hundreds, reaching tens of thousands of San Diegans. Because San Diegan is going to be the final say or nay whether they want to build this for their region or not. And so you're going to see in your neighborhood, in your maybe stadiums, a lot of talk about the 5 big moves and outreach, the 5 big moves to the community. We are planning many events, including a community bike ride at the end of the next month. Stay tuned for more detail. I'll be speaking to the board next Friday about this. One of the things about the 5 big moves, and I want to make sure we're clear. Oftentimes, people take a sentence, a paragraph, a page in the plan and said, oh my God, what are you doing here? And some people went on TV and said, well, you track and tax people. You're gonna take my privacy away. You're gonna follow me around. That's pure fear mongering. Pure fear mongering. This agency will never stand for violation of anybody's privacy. But this agency is gonna put ideas, aggressive ideas out. Aggressive ideas out, not for just to say they're aggressive ideas, but to make this future better for our children and grandchildren, for us. This is about improving your transportation choices. This is about making it safe. This is about reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And regardless where you stand in global warming, this is about cleaning up the air. This is about keeping the beaches of San Diego as beautiful as they are. This is about making sure this region is ready for a future that we must start talking about right now. And I want to share with you a couple of exciting ideas so you didn't hear about it later from somebody else. I took a trip with Mayor Todd Gloria and a few of my team members to Las Vegas, of all places. And we took it in the summer. It was 117 degrees. Las Vegas hired the Boring Company, Elon Musk company, to build a tunnel from the convention center to the strip, 1.8 miles. And we actually rode in the tunnel they built, rode their Model X and Model Y Teslas. And we toured the station that they built underground. So they built 1.8 mile of tunnel with 3 stations, one of them underground. And the cost, $52 million. Let me give you a comparison. The cost of digging a tunnel in West Los Angeles to get to the beach is $1 billion a mile. So we're looking forward to the innovation and creativity of the private sector. Therefore, next month, SANDAG will put a request for information out that will say all over the region, but in specific areas, we would look to build 15 miles of tunnel, and our performance outcome will be electric, driverless, and shared transportation. And we'll allow the private sector to be the sector that usually innovate and create. But more than that, we're gonna be partners with the private sectors. We're gonna take the winning firms and we're gonna actually participate with them in a public-private venture because we're serious about future technologies. And we don't have to wait until 2050. We're gonna start implementing the flexible fleet of this 5 big moves next month. That's the process. And we're gonna get some money to connect the beautiful, beautiful San Diego landmarks. Imagine a situation where you fly to San Diego International, whether you live here, you're a tourist, and you actually could go from the airport to a transportation mobility hub, to Balboa Park, to Petco Park, to SeaWorld, without even thinking a little bit about how to get there, and getting there in minutes and getting there safely. That's the system we're putting the request for information about next month. I have faith in the private sector innovation. We have such a great interest in what we're doing here in San Diego. We're going to become an example to the rest of the state and the country of how we move multimodal system that provide choices for our folks. Not the fear mongering about we're going to charge everybody to drive and we're gonna track everybody. Don't fall for that. That is when somebody said, don't do anything. This is real. The 5 big moves that you're gonna be asked to adopt and becomes the blueprint for the region is real. We're gonna start putting real project, real money on the street. And that plan that you adopt is gonna have to meet the social equity and social justice that we talked about. You adopted a social equity statement. You need to mean it. It's written here in my wall to remind me every day that whatever we do, we have to be serious about. It's no longer talking about it. It's no longer saying, I understand. It is time to move forward with that. Couple of other, I know you have a big agenda today, but I'll give Otay Mesa too. I'm happy to report that the high-level economic dialogue between Mexico and the United States on our side was led by our Vice President Kamala Harris, on the Mexican side with the President of Mexico. I'm happy to say that border infrastructure was on the agenda like we intended it for to be. So we'll continue to move this project and we'll continue to strive for a September 2024 opening. The mid-coast winding down. I keep asking Mr. Lithicum, Jim, are we still on budget on time? And Mr. Lithicum answer said, knock on wood, for now, yes, but we still have a couple of months. Can't wait to turn it over to our partner MTS to operate. I want to thank all of you who participated in the first ride. It's a beautiful ride. If you haven't and you have a desire, talk to us. We had a community celebration with more than 1,500 community members attending. It was really impressive. And for those of you who came, thank you. So the Mid-Coast, the largest infrastructure project, is moving forward as planned. The Del Mar Prof construction is moving. We, as I said before, we secured the funding, we're doing the work, and we'll continue to do the work. I also want to alert you that we are continuing, and today you're going to hear you will be asked to make some action on the bike program. We are moving few of the bike project. I met with the bike community yesterday. I hear them. It's time to act. It is time to take their concern. It is time to achieve Vision Zero. So you will be hearing today and be asked to do some actions on this in the next few months. Working with the Social Equity Group and Councilmember Moreno, we'll be talking about a real change, a significant change to the bike program, where actually we're going to ask for an ordinance change eventually to change the allocation of funding. And finally, I want to alert you to this. As we're supposed to, when we adopt a 5-year TIP, of investment. Last September or September 2019, pre-COVID, our board adopted a 600 million regional transportation improvement program. They specify a lot of funding for environmental work, design, for work that the region needs. We are revisiting that. And I don't want you to be surprised. We are going to recommend to the board that the mix of project change, that some projects be eliminated altogether. And here's why. When you invest 50 or 100 million or $70 million to do an environmental impact report for a project, if you don't build that project within 3 to 5 years, you're going to just be losing that money because you're going to have to redo it all over again. So we're going to revisit and see which project we're going to be able to build and do. So, Madam Chair, Supervisor Vargas, thank you. I'm sorry it's a bit long report, but I didn't see you for a while, so I wanted you to be informed.
Oh, please don't apologize. It was a very informative report, so we appreciate it. We have now, let me go first to public comments and then I'll go to member comments. Are there any public comments, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Chair. I don't see any hands from the public.
All right, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and call on Mayor Gasterland and then Mr. Bonelli.
My apologies, Chair. A hand just went up. Can we take that real quick before we move to members?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Deborah Knight, you can go ahead when you're ready. You'll have 3 minutes.
Sorry, is this item 3?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yes, my name is Deborah Knight. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Rose Canyon. And the reason I'm here is to strongly.
My apologies, Deborah. I'm so sorry, Deborah. I misspoke. We are still on item 2, the Executive Director's report. If you'd like to speak on the EIR, that'll be the next item.
Yes, okay.
Okay, thank you. I'll make sure to call on you at that time.
Okay, thanks.
My apologies, Chair. You can go ahead.
Okay, great. I'll make this very short and sweet. First, I'm going to take the opportunity to thank our Executive Director, Hassan. Thank you for this exciting development with the boring company. When we first started to talk about the railroad relocation and tunneling, I reached out to them and received a little bit of a tutorial from their website, and I'm glad to hear about this connection. They're into educating all of us, so I strongly encourage everyone to connect with this. I hope that the 15 miles of tunnels that'll be part of the RFI includes the 2 miles of Del Mar tunnel. Wouldn't it be cool to have a 50 million instead of a $3 billion project? So thank you for that. That's comment number 1. Comment number 2 is actually a question. HIPAA is the health information policy that guarantees that all of our medical records stay private and all of our medical information. We're constantly signing things recognizing HIPAA when we go to the doctor. So I don't know if something like HIPAA exists for transport and transport data privacy, let's call it. But if it doesn't, perhaps we could look at the principles of HIPAA and in fact be leaders in San Diego for ensuring data privacy for drivers and users of public transportation in San Diego.
Let me address that, Mayor. I appreciate that. Honestly, I mean, we operate toll roads. We have 125 and we have the I-15 high occupancy toll lanes. And you know that the users, have transponders. And of course, we're required by law. We can't violate. I mean, we right now just settled the lawsuit regarding this kind of issue with other agencies around the state. So there is these kind of things. We just simply, even if we allowed, we won't. I just want you to hear it from me, because when you switch on the TV and somebody says, well, SANDAG is going to track you, that is so far from the truth. That's the fear mongering I'm talking about. But you are absolutely right. The transportation community should look at something to guarantee what's already existing and what the laws are.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Aggregate information is easy to anonymize, and data that's gathered is easy to anonymize. So I appreciate you bringing that to the forefront.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Bonelli.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. Hassan, let me ask you a question. Do you have any updated information regarding the Los San corridor? I realize it's outside our region, but I saw the paper this morning with the shifting earth up in San Clemente and the shutdown of passenger service for the next couple of weeks. Do you have any insight in how bad that damage is and how it might be corrected?
I do. First of all, Los An is actually, we're such a big part of Los An. Los An goes from San Diego to San Luis Obispo, but they call it Los Angeles San Luis Obispo line. As we said before, this is the second busiest rail line in the country after the Northeast. And it has challenges because it's in some places, whether it's in Del Mar or in Sacramento, there's challenges of earth movement and bluff collapses, etc. I will tell you this, we made it a point in this discussion that's going on right now in the budget that the governor released. That budget has about $7.4 billion for rail. A lot of it is designated for the Central Valley, which is fine. But we made it a point to our leaders, especially to our President Pro Tem Martin. So I want to thank today publicly for doing the amazing work. We made it a point to the Speaker Rendon that Los An corridor should be a big part of the rail program in California. And between now and January, the legislators and the governor is going to work and figure out how do we make funding available, not only to stabilize the corridor or deal with the issues that are emerging, but to make sure this corridor gives what it deserves and get this corridor ready for the potential stimulus, national stimulus that we're going to get. So I think this agency have elevated the discussion of Los An many times over. And I think the state leaders are aware of this, Mr. Panelli. And furthermore, I think, to me, improving the Los An in our region from the border to Oceanside, all of the 60-mile is a SANDAG priority. And that include moving the track from the bluff, that include straightening the Miramar curve, that include and our partners, our neighbors in Orange County and Los Angeles and Ventura and Santa Barbara and beyond should take this, and they are taking this as seriously as we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other comments, we're going to move on. There is no consent calendar on today's agenda, so we're going to move on to reports. And first report is item number 3, the overview of the draft environmental impact report for San Diego Forward, the regional plan and its sustainability. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Greer.
Yes, good morning, Chair Vargas and committee members. Thank you. My name is Keith Greer. I'm the planning manager in charge of the preparation of the environmental impact report, or EIR, for the 21 regional plan. This is an informational item on the status of the EIR. The draft EIR has been completed and was sent out for a 45-day public review on August 27th, 2021. The staff report says September 27th, and that's a typo. It was sent out on August 27th. In addition to the legal noticing requirements by the state for publication in Office of Planning and Research, newspapers, the notice of availability for the review of the draft EIR was sent out to over 6,800 people. Next slide. So you can find the EIR and the 15 technical appendices on the San Diego Forward website. There's a drop-down menu under the plan, or there's an actual link on the left-hand side under the bars on the left. You can read or download the entire document or individual sections. The executive summary in both Spanish and English is available. And also alternative formats are available upon request by contacting the SANDAG's ADA coordinator. In addition, hard copies are available at the Central Library and the SANDAG downtown offices. Next. So you've seen EIRs before, but I thought it bears reminder of what the purpose of the EIR is. The EIR identifies the physical impacts on the environment from the plan and identifies potential mitigation to reduce those impacts. It also solicits input from the public through public review of the document and provides response to any comments received from the public as part of the final EIR. The final EIR is provided to the board for certification and as part of their deliberations when they consider the regional plan. The draft EIR is considered a program EIR under the California Environmental Quality Act, and that's used for evaluating a plan or a long-term program. So many of the details are in the magnitude of the impacts are not known at this time, and program level subsequent environmental review under CEQA will be required. Next. The draft EIR for the 21 regional plan covers 19 different resource areas, each with one or more criteria for determining what we call a significance of impact and the mitigation for any significant impacts that are identified. As CEQA practitioners, we're fond of saying that the environmental document needs to tell the story. And sometimes that story gets lost in the thousands of pages of analysis that's required to make the EIR legally defendable. So today I wanted to provide you with 5 key takeaways from the EIR related to topics that have come up in the past over transportation, greenhouse gas emissions, air quality, and the loss of native habitat and conversion of agricultural lands. Next slide. The draft EIR analyzes vehicle miles traveled. That's the new metric for evaluating impacts on the transportation system under CEQA. You might recall that SB 743 converted from what we typically use as traffic or level of service to this new vehicle miles traveled. So the total VMT for the regional plan rises a modest 6.6% from now through 2050. And for comparison, that's roughly half of what our neighboring MPOs in Los Angeles and Sacramento are seeing. So it's only a modest 6.6% rise. But the state actually doesn't use VMT total. They look at VMT per person or per capita. And you can see with this green line here that the VMT per capita actually drops or is reduced 14.1% over the same time period. CARB has set a goal, the California Air Resources Board has set a goal for 2050 of a reduction of 14.3% of vehicle miles traveled per capita by 2050. That's that pink diamond. So we get really close with the plan. And the plan itself has identified what we call off-model reductions. These are things that van pools, car shares, TDM ordinances, which could actually reduce an additional 2.2% if they occur. These strategies are identified in Appendix S of the plan, and it could be a total reduction of minus 16.3%, which would meet and exceed the CARB standard. The challenge is those are required at the local implementation at the local level and with employers with SANDAG's participation. So the roadmap is clear. We have a pathway forward. It's going to require collaboration to get our VMT down below what the state target is. Let me shift now over to the greenhouse gas emissions, another topic that's been of concern in the EIR in the past. Next slide. The EIR looks at 5 different criteria for evaluating greenhouse gases. The first 4 are readily met by the plan. We see a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions over the life of the plan by 28%. We exceed the standard set up by Senate Bill 375 for emissions by 2035. We also exceed the SANDAG board resolution for emission reductions for the entire transportation sector by 2035. The original plan also has no conflicts with local caps. It promotes local climate action plans. The 5th criteria is the ability to achieve state targets for greenhouse gas reductions. So you may recall that under Senate Bill 32, there's a reduction, statewide reduction target of 40% below 1990 levels, and 2 other executive orders that look at trying to reduce GHG reduction measures by 80% by 1990 levels by 2050, and to achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. Those are very aggressive high targets. How does the plan do? Next slide. You'll see here in the blue bar that comes up, the blue line, that over the life of the plan, GHG emissions drop from 2016 to 2050 from 26 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent to 18 million metric tons. That's a good significant drop over the life of the plan. And for context, I've put in here the 2015 regional plan. That's the last adopted regional plan, shown in black, which is significantly higher. The reference points for the state goals are shown in pink. The 20 regional plan alone does not meet the state's aggressive targets. To assist the region to achieve and help reduce the targets, the 21 regional plan has supporting policies and programs. These are things to help support the transportation system as well as land use in the future. They appear in tanks A and B and envision significant investments to reduce VMT and GHG. The EIR recognizes those investments and has identified $242 million of those investments for the mitigation of greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide. The 4 mitigation conditions that are identified in the EIR will help facilitate local climate action plans, provide new funding for zero emission vehicles, implement a nature-based carbon sequestration program, and advance smart cities and strategies to close the digital divides. Collectively, these will help reduce GHG throughout the region. But the regional plan can only go so far. In the development of the EIR, SANDAG came to the same conclusions as the other big MPOs in California, and states that the states, to achieve the state's mid-century goals, will require significant shifts outside transportation, including the energy sector, decarbonization of existing buildings and new construction, and creating new sustainable practices for both wastewater and water, and to figure out methods to directly reduce carbon from the atmosphere. So it's not SANDAG's requirement to meet the state's targets alone. It does require state leadership for us all to come together as both on the local, regional, and statewide level to figure out how we're going to reduce GHG to meet these state targets. Next slide, please. Shifting over to air quality. Overall air quality improves as a region moves towards cleaner, newer vehicles. They make less emissions per mile basis and an increased use in transit. We'll see a reduction in the precursors of ozone, that's the reactive organic gases and nitrous oxides, reduction in carbon monoxide, and the inhalable fine particulate matters that we call PM 2.5. They all decrease in the plan over the lifetime of the plan itself. While particulate matters from auto emissions decrease, the inhalable coarse particulates that are smaller than about 10 microns, or what we call PM10, they're associated with brake and tire wear and road dust. These increase as VMT increases and results in a significant impact by 2050. In addition, we see that there's an increase in sulfur oxides associated with the expansion of heavy rail towards the end life of the plan as we provide more commuter trains. Next slide. The mitigation would be mitigated by the following condition. The EIR would acquire and operate zero emission train vehicles on any new rail lines after 2035 as proposed in the draft EIR. With that, we have no impact on sulfur oxides, but we still have an impact associated with that road dust and brake wear as the particulate matter 10 increases in the atmosphere with VMT. So that remains a significant unavoidable impact. Next slide. Finally, I want to turn over to the loss of native habitat and conversion of agricultural lands to non-agricultural purposes. The land use patterns of the sustainable community strategy associated with the plan results in more compact development served by a more efficient transportation network. Instead of sprawling out, the plan envisions we infill development and grow up. It's a smarter growth pattern than we've seen in the past. This results in significantly less impact to native habitat and agricultural lands compared to prior regional plans. The plan will result in the loss of about 1,500 acres of habitat in agriculture. And while this is significant, it is an 86% decrease compared to the 2050 plan. The result is about 93,000 acres that are not impacted or proposed to be impacted by the 21 regional plan for future land use growth. So for context, 93,000 acres is about 145 square miles, or 3 times the city of Chula Vista, or 4 times the city of San Diego's current open space. So it's a significant change and one that's positive in terms of environmental impacts. Next slide. The EIR also talks about alternatives to the proposed plan. So alternatives are required under CEQA to look, and the EIR is required to look at a reasonable range of alternatives that reduce environmental impacts. The alternatives are based upon land use patterns, transportation networks, and pricing and policies. And I've always thought of alternatives as kind of a dial, where if you're trying to reduce one impact, you turn the dial and then see what happens. And then maybe there's another impact in a different way, you turn the dial to a different situation and see what that looks like. The 3 alternatives that are included in the EIR are the first alternative, the no project alternative. This is required by CEQA. Projects that are included in this are those with environmental clearance that have full funding, are under construction, or otherwise reasonably foreseeable to be built based on the current plan. The no project list, or what they call no build, is included in the regional plan itself and also in the EIR. As SANDAG falls out of compliance with state and federal requirements to have a regional plan, by 2023, it envisions that there would be no more development under the regional plan, and the plans would progress under the regional plans and the general plans of the city's jurisdictions. The second alternative looks at what if you lose the 2019 transportation plan and use the land use patterns that were adopted of that plan that are based upon the general plans of the 18 cities in the county. Meaning if you wanted to try to be consistent with land use patterns of the general plans in the city, this alternative could use a 2019 network and what happens. It includes no mobility hubs, but does include some new pricing and user fees to try to reduce GHG and VMT travel. The final alternative, alternative 3, uses the same transportation network and land use patterns associated with the 21 regional plan. It then turns up the dial to reduce GHG and VMT impacts by limiting future growth into mobility hubs and providing more aggressive or progressive value pricing and user fees, increasing 1 cent for the VMT fees and doubling the parking fees. The goal here is to see what you could do for GHG reductions, VMT, if you included more pricing and more compact development. All the EIRs are analyzed in Chapter 6 of the EIR, and also the Appendix O of the EIR has a nice comparison. You can compare one to another. As Hassan said, there's no alternative that's required to be selected by the board. It's just required to be considered as part of deliberation on the proposed plan itself. Next slide. Turning to the final slide here, next steps. The 45-day public review ends on October 11th, 2021 for regional plan. All comments received will be, we'll have written response in the final EIR. And the final EIR will be provided to the board for their consideration and certification when they take action on the 21 regional plan. That concludes staff's report. And I'll turn it back over to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that thorough presentation. I did want to say that as chair of the Air Pollution Control District, Control Board, I'm sorry, and SANDAG Transportation Committee, I mean, it really is clear that our government agencies are working together to achieve clean air and healthy communities. When I was reviewing the EIR, I believe SANDAG is heading in the right direction with our regional plan, and the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions that this plan shows, I think is going to bring the necessary investments that will help us meet our goals, local targets, and get close to our state goals. The regional plan alone will not be enough to meet some of the mandates. However, it is imperative that our region and every local jurisdiction acts with strong transit-oriented development and climate action plans to encourage more people living near transit centers and mode shift. I did chat with staff yesterday, and then it was just haven't had a chance to talk to Hassan about this. So Hassan, I'm not trying to blindside you here, but I thought it might be a good idea for the members of the Air Pollution Control District, which some of my colleagues are here, and our transportation, SANDAG Transportation Committee to come together to look at some of our priorities and make that maybe a workshop where we all can identify some of the goals. And so that is something that we're considering and we're talking about. And so more information will be coming forth to both members of both boards. With that, are there any public comments? I think that we have 3 public comments. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'll call on Deborah Knight. Deborah, you can go ahead when you're ready. And Deborah will be followed by Craig Jones.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Deborah Knight. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Rose Canyon, which works to preserve the Rose Creek watershed, the main freshwater tributary of Mission Bay. That watershed includes Marion Bear Park. Marion Bear Park is adjacent to the 52 between I-5 and the 805. When you head east or west on the 52 in that stretch, the southern boundary there is all MSCP, protected land, and open space park. The EIR proposes to add 3 lanes to that area and to do a huge expansion with massive highway connectors to the 52, from the 52 to the 5 and the 805. This will have a tremendously negative impact on Marion Bear Park, and I strongly urge you to reject this option. That will impact the users, people like me. You want people to live in high density communities. We want to build up, and yet you're destroying one of the local parks that is highly used. It's also core land of the MSCP. It's completely protected. And this would obviously, if you expand a huge highway immediately along the edge of your MSCP, you're going to have tremendous direct and indirect impacts. It's certainly, and it's a roadway that's listed as four lanes now. It's 6 lanes for long stretches of it. So please, I strongly oppose the widening of the 52 between the 5 and the 805. And I hope that you will protect the parks for the people that you want to live, that you want to have live in ever denser areas, and that you will protect our core MSCP lands that are gradually being degraded by adjacent development. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next, we'll have Craig Jones, who will be followed by Carolina.
Hi, thank you. I actually have some questions for clarification, I assume, from Mr. Greer. First, on the GHG analysis that he presented. My question is, are those analyses of project impacts and production of GHGs, are the GHG levels from all sectors of the San Diego region, not just transportation, but from agriculture, from energy? Are those analyzed levels of GHG production from all sectors? That's my first question. Second question would be, in light of the apparent environmentally superior of alternative 3 in the EIR, what would be the reasons not to go for adoption of alternative 3? Hopefully we can get some clarification on these. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Carolina, who will be followed by Tim Bylash.
Good morning, board members and staff. My name is Carolina with the Environmental Health Coalition. We're here to express gratitude, but also concerns with some of the significant impacts. We really appreciate the staff and all the progress to elevate mass transit as a major solution to the climate crisis, to air quality, especially in environmental justice communities. It is the best solution that is actually very financially feasible, that should be implemented immediately and throughout the implementation of the plan to 2050. The concerns that we do want to elevate are related to the significant impacts on substantial toxic air contaminants. So they're all air quality related. So the plan recognizes that there will be significant impacts, and we have concerns about that. And the draft also recognizes that there'll be exposure to sensitive receptors of PM10 and PM2.5, and that they're significant. So those two elements are something that we want to look close to, and that we have concerns, and that is just not acceptable that we see a plan that is assuming that PM10 and 2.5 are going to be elevated to sensitive receptors. So we want to address that before we move forward, and we look forward to working with staff on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Next, we'll have Tim Bylash, and that will conclude the public comments.
Thank you so much for this. I just want to extend that concern for the PM10 and PM2.5 particulate matter. The staff has described the further attempts to reduce the particulate matter at those sizes. I would advise some looking at the impact of the wildfires' contribution to that, as well as a concern for respiratory diseases contributing to pandemic disease. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, and Chair, that concludes the public comments.
So that's what I wanted to add is, and maybe I wasn't clear, but the workshop that I was discussing around having SANDAG, transportation, and the Air Pollution Control District come together is so that we can address some of these issues that some of the folks have been bringing up. So thank you for your comments. The next item, seeing no member comments, is item number 4. It's the TransNet Environmental Mitigation Program, Land Management Grant Program, call for projects for a 10th cycle of grant funding. I did. I'm going to call back on Ms. Jenny Russo.
Good morning, committee members.
Wait, hold on one second. Member two, I had asked for member comments and I didn't see you had not raised your hand. Was that for the previous one?
On the EIR.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna go ahead and hold off. Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I'm just very confused because I said, are there any member comments? And nobody said yes and nobody raised their hand. So I apologize, but I can't, I need people to speak up. So thank you. There's 155 people on this item, so I can't see everybody. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Supervisor Vargas, you're doing great jobs. So thank you. I didn't get the right message there. I'm an alternate on the Borders Committee, but I want to make some comments as a member of the board of the APCD, which Nora Vargas also chairs. And I really want to first commend SANDAG for changing its course. And I think Mr. Gear's chart of what the previous RTPs did in terms of greenhouse gas emission reductions and what it does now is a sharp difference in terms of what the SANDAG was planning for before. We still have a long ways to go. The plan and implementation, of course, is really the harder part. Planning is probably the easier part. Implementing will be much harder. I want to make a few comments with regards to pollutants and the benefits of reducing those pollutants that we just talked about. We know these communities, the impacted communities, and in East County, that's La Mesa and El Cajon, in the 95th percentile of Cal Environmental Screening bad air communities. These benefits we can have, in fact, we need benefits now. We need the cleaner air now. People are suffering from asthma and cancer now. Just like greenhouse gas emissions reductions, we need to have that reduced now, and that the climate change is affecting our health currently with regards to more people dying due to the heated, increased temperatures. So I implore on doing even better than what we have now in these charts, and I'll have some questions to that later. But I do want to also point out one chart that is missing, and that is the health benefits, which AB 805 asked for. So when we look at these plans, RTPs, we need to look at another chart that shows the reduction in the cases of asthma. We need the chart to show some reduction of cancer. And if we can improve those charts even better, we would save lives, we would save illness within our communities. And to me, that's what we're missing with regards to the EIR. And in fact, what AB 805 actually asks for and requires of SANDAG. So that's my comment. I'm really happy that Chair Vargas made a comment that we're going to work in concert with other governing bodies like APCD, which I'm a board member of, because we want this pollution to go down faster. We want the reduction to go faster. Thank you, Chair Vargas, with your leadership on APCD. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Councilmember Rivera, Hilo Rivera.
Thank you, Chair. So first, yeah, thank you big time for the presentation here. I think about my time as I was starting as an advocate, and it was as the 2015, the process in 2015 was wrapping up. And I just do want to note that this is, the engagement piece of this seems substantially better. At that point, it really did feel at a certain point like it was a facade, and things had already been decided and community input was being asked for after the fact. And this does seem as, from a process perspective, it's a step in the positive, in the right direction. And I think in content, this is a step in the right direction. I just have a couple of quick questions. The first, with respect to the really important point that Chair Vargas made about the importance of collaboration. And so I'm curious to what extent SANDAG has been able to communicate with the city of San Diego as we are updating our CAP to ensure that these various really, really important documents and planning processes are linked up. Keith, has that been something that's been able to happen right now?
So for the environmental impact report, the city of San Diego is part of our distribution, and they will be providing comments like all the members of the public. As part of the planning process, so the environmental impactor looks at the plan. As part of the planning process, the planning team has worked with the city of San Diego exclusively and extensively throughout the life of the development of the 21 regional plan.
Great. And from a city perspective, is there anything that we can do to improve the communication with SANDAG, to improve the way that we're kind of being a good partner for the rest of the region when it comes to planning for our environmental impact?
I would probably refer that over to the city of San Diego members, staff members there, but I think we're lockstep with the city of San Diego in terms of trying to promote greenhouse gas reductions on a regional level and at the local level. We're in lockstep trying to figure out how to increase our transit to be more efficient and reduce VMTs. And we as staff work, collaborate on things that can be taken from the jurisdictions and elevated to the region. We do that with the county of San Diego and the cities all the time.
Madam Chair, this is Colleen Clemenson at SANDAG. If I could chime in here and help respond to the question from Council Member Elo Rivera. So the question you're asking is really important, and it is, how do we align the regional plan to help support the really important climate action planning that's happening at the local level? And one of the things that we're able to do with this plan that we have not done with previous plans is using all the same data. So the data that we're using in our regional plan and that's in the EIR, we are providing that directly to your staff at the city of San Diego. So the planning staff, as well as the mobility and sustainability team. So they're using that and then building upon that with the climate action plan. So the kind of reductions that we're showing region-wide will only get better in the city of San Diego with the work that you're doing. And so we're working very closely with the city of San Diego staff, also with the county of San Diego staff as they're working on their climate action plan. And all of this data will be available to all 19 jurisdictions once the plan is complete. So we feel we're taking the investments in transportation and the land use assumptions really far at a regional level, but there's so much more that can happen at the local level. And we're going to work closely with your team to help realize that. So excellent question. And I think we have a great opportunity here in the region.
Thanks, Colleen. I really appreciate that response. I want to make it clear, it's a two-way street. And so the question really was meant more for how San Diego as a city can do better as a partner, if at all. And so, please don't hesitate to let us know. I'm glad that it sounds like the communication is happening in an effective way. Last question here, I know we've got a lot to do today, is related to how, children and youth mobility needs are factored into the regional plan. So there's a lot of talk specifically about the need for youth opportunity passes, no cost transit passes for youth 24 and under. But I think even bigger picture, the way that young folks move around, from my perspective, has not been appropriately accounted for in planning in the years past. Oftentimes it seems like they're just kind of an afterthought. There's a couple reasons why that's important. One is to make sure that we're building what young folks need in order to get around safely. But also it also happens that the way that young folks move around is more environmentally friendly and does help reduce GHGs. And so I'm curious if we are being intentional about including children and youth mobility needs as the plan is being developed, and to what extent that might be incorporated into the different options here.
Madam Chair, if you'd like me to respond to the council member, I'd be happy to do so. I think, one of the things we talk about with the regional plan is that we are planning for future generations. And a big part of this plan is about technology. And we know how youth and younger people are so comfortable using their phones for making their transportation choices. They're much more apt to want to use Uber and Lyft and transportation services that are on demand. And you're absolutely right. These are more environmentally friendly because they're the kinds of transportation where we're sharing rides. It's not everybody individually owning a car and going to the particular destination that they want to go. So the data-driven process that we've used to develop the plan absolutely brings that into the forefront. I think key then at the local level, since you had brought that up, council member, previously, is that we need to make sure that we're working all together on Vision Zero to reduce, all the, and really address safety on our sidewalks and on our local streets and roads so that we can really facilitate better ride share, and really using all the technologies to help make our transportation system and seamless for future generations.
Thanks, Colleen. I will say that I can't emphasize enough, how important the walking and riding part of this is. Obviously, the comfort with technology is important and can be helpful, but we need to reduce GHG, and there's no better way to do that than to make it safe and efficient for folks to walk and ride to where they're going. The environmental impact of that is that's the best route, right? So I hope that we just keep that in mind. And the more safe and more efficient it is for young people to walk and ride to where they need to go, the more likely it is that they're going to make that and maintain that as a habit throughout their lifetimes. That we're going to normalize, walking and riding as an effective and efficient way to get to and from where we need to go. So I hope that is all being accounted for. I will say that the City of San Diego's Environment Committee is happy to be a partner to SANDAG in making those efforts fruitful. And I appreciate your work. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
You are welcome. The next item on the agenda, I see no other member comments. Oh, we have two more, Madam Clerk. You have two more public comments.
Thank you, Chair. First, we have Craig Jones, who will be followed by Jill Galvez. Craig, you can go ahead when you're ready. It's possible Craig's hand might still be up from his previous comment. Oh, wait.
No, there we go. Hi.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
I was hoping to get response to the questions that I posed during my testimony. Is it possible to get response to those questions from Mr. Greer?
Thank you, Craig. We usually don't respond during the public comment period, but if you could send me an email at clerkoftheboard@sandag.org, I'd be happy to gather responses and get back to you.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Jill, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, I just needed to connect via a different way, so I'm raising to join as a panelist. Thanks.
Gotcha. Thank you. I'll take care of that. And Chair, so I think we're good on public comments. You can move ahead with the agenda.
Thank you. I can't wait to see everybody in person. All right, item number 4 is the TransNet Environmental Mitigation Program. Land Management Grant Program call for projects for 10th cycle of the grant funding. I am going to turn it over to Ms. Jenny Russo.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Jenny Russo, and I'm the Grants Program Manager here at SANDAG. In 2019, as part of the agency's reorganization efforts, a grants division was created within the Contracts and Grants Department. This team has two components. First is the grants application, where SANDAG applies for competitive grant programs for its own programs and projects. And second is grants distribution, where SANDAG distributes federal, state, and local funds through a competitive process to local agencies and nonprofits for their projects and programs. You'll see my team several times over the coming months and years as we bring you programs such as the Housing Incentive Program, Smart Growth Incentive Program, Active Transportation Program, and Specialized Transportation Program, to name a few. This morning, I'm proud to partner with the SANDAG Environmental Planning team to bring you the TransNet Land Management Grant Program for your consideration. My colleague Courtney is here to tell you about this upcoming funding opportunity.
Thank you, Jenny, and good morning, committee members. My name is Courtney Pesh, and I'm a Regional Planner 1 here at SANDAG. Item 4 on your agenda is located on page 35, and it outlines the eligibility, submittal, and evaluation criteria for the proposed 10th cycle of land management grants to implement the TransNet Environmental Mitigation Program, also referred to as the EMP. Next slide, please. Today's request focuses on the Habitat Conservation Fund. This is the funding for the regional land management and biological provisions of the EMP. The EMP is implemented through a strategy outlined in a Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA, that was signed by SANDAG, Caltrans, California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in 2008 and was most recently renewed in February of 2019. The MOA allocates $4 million per year for 10 years to assist in funding the gaps in regional land management and biological monitoring to maintain the regional preserve system. This funding provides a safety net to protect our investments, and in turn by helping to avoid the listing of endangered species and by reducing permitting and mitigation costs. Per the MOA, annual allocations for each fiscal year totaling $4 million are reviewed and approved by the SANDAG Board of Directors. This allows the Board of Directors to make modifications or any necessary adjustments to this funding. The work is then implemented through consultant contracts and the Land Management Grant Program. Next slide, please. The purpose of the Land Management Grant Program is to assist regional land managers with the protection of threatened, rare, and endangered species and enhance their habitats to avoid future listing of endangered species while promoting regional habitat conservation planning. There have been 9 previous grant cycles that have awarded a total of 117 grants through a competitive process. Approximately $16.4 million in funding has been awarded, and an additional $10 million in matching funds has been provided by grantees. Past projects have included signage, fencing, and directional walkways to protect existing habitats and species, reintroduction of endangered species, exotic species removal, and recovery of habitats previously burned in wildfires. The location of the projects funded by these grants are located on the map above. The EMP Working Group and SANDAG staff are recommending for the 10th cycle of the land management grants. Next slide, please. The fiscal year 2021 and 2022 work plan for the EMP management and monitoring includes approximately $2.4 million to implement the 10th cycle of land management grants. An ad hoc committee of the EMP Working Group met to discuss the next cycle of land management grants in January of 2021 and determined that for the land management grants to be most effective at achieving regional conservation goals, $800,000 should be allocated to fill existing funding gaps to assist land managers with short-term stewardship activities, while $1.6 million should be allocated to longer-term, larger-scale habitat restoration and enhancement projects. Projects in the threats reduction stewardship category, located on the left side of your screen, are short-term projects that are in need of one-time funding necessary to fill existing budget gaps for specific tasks. Projects should be completed within 18 months and can be awarded a maximum of $80,000 each. The recommendation for the $80,000 funding gap will allow SANDAG to grant multiple small awards to a greater number of grantees. Projects in the species and habitat recovery category, located on the right side of your screen, are longer-term projects that focus on habitat restoration and enhancement with an emphasis on management strategic plan, priority species, and their habitats. Projects can be awarded up to $1.6 million and should be completed within 3 to 5 years. The funding cap of $1.6 million was chosen to provide maximum flexibility in funding for projects in this category. Eligible activities covered under these funding categories include management stewardship actions to reduce threats to endangered and threatened species and their habitats, control of invasive plant and animal species, planting and seeding of areas of native vegetation, and signage and directional fencing. Grant applications for both funding categories will be evaluated based on how they address high priority sensitive species and their habitats. If success criteria has been identified, and if success of the project is likely. The availability of matching funds will also be used as an evaluation criteria for projects in the species and habitat recovery category. The evaluation criteria for both grant categories remains consistent with the 9th cycle of land management grants, with the exception of new evaluation criterion, which was added to both grant categories, located on page 42 of your agenda. In accordance with SANDAG's new commitment to equity statement that was adopted by the Board of Directors this past February, the EMP Working Group added evaluating language that scores projects higher for fostering social equity or providing potential co-benefits to community-based organization network communities, also referred to as CVO network communities. Examples include, but are not limited to, restoring open space in CVO network community, providing educational opportunities on environmental conservation in San Diego to CVO network communities, engaging California Conservation Corps to perform invasive species removal, and engaging a minority-owned business or organization to conduct work on the project. Next slide, please. So what are our next steps? The information presented to you today will be shared with the Board of Directors this upcoming October. If the Board of Directors approves the eligibility, submittal, and evaluation criteria for the land management grants, the call for projects is then anticipated to be released in sometime in November, and a public workshop will be scheduled near then to address questions from potential applicants. Grant applications will tentatively be due in February of 2022, and application review will follow in that spring. Staff will then present the evaluation committee's recommendations for awards to ITALC, RPC, TC, and Board of Directors in the summer of 2022. And it is expected that grant agreements will be executed sometime in the fall of 2022. Next slide, please. Therefore, the Transportation and Regional Planning Committees are asked to review the eligibility, submittal, and evaluation criteria for the next call for projects of the TransNet Environmental Mitigation Program, Land Management Program, and then recommend for the approval to the SANDAG Board. That concludes our presentation, and Jenny and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thorough presentation. Are there any public comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair. I don't see any hands from the public.
Okay, are there any member comments? There are one, Mr. Xu.
Thank you, Chair Vargas. I want to be brief, but I want to put on my other hat as a person who deals with wildlife a lot and habitat conservation. I want to reemphasize that this program is a mitigation program. And I want to define mitigation very clearly. Mitigation is something that we do to help when we do something wrong. When we don't do something wrong, we don't do it as well as we should be. In other words, we're making up for some damage. So I want to make that clear that this is not something good we're doing to the environment. We're doing something to make up for something we're not doing well enough. So to that effect, for example, widening a freeway, if we could not widen that freeway, we won't have to do as much mitigation. And that's how we should see this program. This is a drop in the bucket for the damage that our transportation system does to wildlife habitat, really is. So we may see this as a few $1 million, but in reality, it's a fraction of the amount of money that is needed to really restore the habitat that is being damaged by our transportation system. So I want to make that point very clear. The best thing we can do is to have a transportation plan that has less damage to our environment. We could double, triple, quadruple this program, but it wouldn't make up for simply making a better plan itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Vice Chair Campillo.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation to the staff for the presentation. Just a very brief question in terms of managing mitigation around major freeway projects. For example, the 52 freeway, which runs right next to a multi-species conservation program space north of the 52, which is in my council district. Just wondering if that space is within the contemplation of staff of where this money might go and just exactly what that'll look like.
I can address that. Keith Greer again. So first of all, this is an environmental mitigation program, but the grants themselves are not tied to mitigation. They're helped to provide stopgap measures throughout the region for land management, where we actually see that there's more need for land management, species and habitat conservation than current funding at the local jurisdictions. To answer your question, all areas of open space and all areas for land managers, this money could be used for. It's competitive, they have to compete, but it's all available for anybody who owns open space and wants to provide management.
Understood. Thanks for clarifying that for me. And that ends my questions, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. All right, I don't think there's any other member comments. Now I'm going to call on our clerk to explain the process to conduct voting for both the Transportation Committee and the Regional Planning Committees on this item.
Thank you very much, Chair. Since multiple committees will be voting on this item, what I'll be doing is going through the Regional Planning Committee vote first, and then I'll announce that result. And then we'll go through the Transportation Committee members, and I'll announce that result at the end of that vote. We do have a few primary members that are absent. So if you're an alternate on one of these committees, if you could please be ready to vote in their absence, I would appreciate it. So we'll go ahead with the Regional Planning Committee now. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Yes.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Vargas.
Vargas, yes, but I think we need a motion.
Oh, my apologies.
So I'll go to somebody.
Sankey, move to approve.
Elo Rivera, second.
Fantastic, thank you. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you so much, Chair. I'm sorry about that. For East County, Councilmember Gastel.
Yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Mayor Gasterland.
Yes.
Thank you. North County Inland is absent. And for South County, Chair Salas.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And that vote does pass unanimously with those members present.
Chair Vargas, I don't, just to be safe, perhaps you and I should vote again since there wasn't a motion when you and I voted.
Yep, okay. Yes.
All right, I'll go ahead and start at the top then. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Elo Rivera, yes.
Thank you very much. And for the County of San Diego, Supervisor Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to the Transportation Committee. The San Diego County Regional Airport Authority is absent today. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo.
I will be voting yet. Actually, I'll be making the motion on behalf of the Transportation Committee
Yes,
and
do we need
also
a separate
voting.
motion for each committee, John?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Thank you. Apologies for my my lack of parliamentarian expertise here. Okay, so I apologize. Councilmember Campillo, were you making the motion then?
I did, yes. Thank you.
Second by Edson.
I'm sorry, I think I heard Commissioner Benelli for the second.
Benelli, second.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start at the top. San Diego County Regional Airport Authority is absent. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo.
Yes.
Thank you very much. For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
Thank you. For East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Eat your breakfast. Mendoza, yes.
Thank you very much. For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Montgomery Stepp.
Montgomery Stepp, yes.
Thank you very much. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
Thank you very much. For North County Inland, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
Thank you. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson.
Edson, yes.
Thank you very much. For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you very much. And that motion does pass with those members present.
Madam Clerk, just for clarification, I think I saw my colleague Supervisor Anderson here, and I'm his alternate on the regional planning. I'm not the member. So I just want to double check because I think I saw him.
My apologies. He wasn't here yet when I checked attendance.
I saw him and then he left, maybe. Okay.
No, I've been here the whole time.
Yeah, I'm
there he
sorry,
is.
Supervisor Anderson.
But I couldn't, I'm so rarely the primary person. I just assume that Nora, you were the primary. If you
Yeah,
need a
you are,
vote from
sir.
me.
You are. I just want to double check that they make sure that your attendance is noted. All right, we're going to continue now. Thank you, everybody, for your patience and for being so flexible on this.
I'm sorry to jump in. I want to clarify that if the primary member is present, the primary member is the one who needs to vote and the alternate member would not, that vote would not be proper.
Okay.
Could we get Supervisor Anderson's vote on the record?
Aye.
Thank you.
Noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kirk. This is the beauty of doing combined meetings, but we're doing well. All right, so with that, both motions carry. Now we are going to go to item number 5. It's the Regional Bikeway Program, program status, program feature, and potential budget amendments. Mr. Chris Klett.
Good morning. Thank you. This is item number 5. And so in this item, we're going to talk about the origins of the Bike EAP, what we've accomplished so far, and most importantly, the future of the program. I'll wait for the slides to catch up here. Next slide, please. So as we move forward with the Bikeway Early Action Program, we know that project costs have increased over what was in the original estimates. And we know that to complete the Bike EAP and to deliver the transportation, economic and social equity benefits of active transportation to the region, we're going to need some additional funding. So this item includes short-term and long-term funding strategies. The short-term strategy includes proposed fiscal year 22 budget amendments to accelerate projects and move up the construction timelines for projects and improvements in historically underserved communities. While the long-term strategy includes a framework for potential TransNet ordinance amendments to make the bike program more competitive for outside funding, and just as importantly, to better align with the goals of the upcoming 2021 regional plan. So we're really excited that we're kind of at this juncture of the program and coming here to work with policy committees on funding strategies to implement our mutual goals of completing the EAP, strengthening our commitment to social equity, and advancing the timeline on these projects and investments in the historically underserved communities. Next slide, please. So a quick recap. It has taken us a while to get here, as a lot of us know, but we've really picked up a lot of momentum and we're getting a lot of projects out into construction, which I'll touch on in just a moment. But quickly, let's take a look back at the history of the EAP for some folks who may not be as familiar with it as others. The Early Action Program was approved by our Board of Directors originally in 2013 with that $200 million investment of TransNet funds to implement our 30 highest priority urban bikeway projects, as well as the 4 regional bike path projects, including Bayshore Bikeway, Inland Rail Trail, Coastal Rail Trail, and the San Diego River Trail. And the board's direction also included an action to support programs such as outreach and education from the regional bike plan, and then to continue to fund local and bike pedestrian projects through our local active transportation grant program. And some of the goals, the primary goals of the EAP really is what we want to do is encourage more people to get out there and ride and give people the opportunity to make those everyday trips for everyday people. And to do that, we really need to design and build safe, inviting, traffic calm streets and as many protected bikeways as we can that will improve our connections in and between our neighborhoods and make the direct connections and capitalize on the investments that we've made to regional transit. And really what these projects do, they're really complete streets projects that improve safety for all roadway users. We always talk about them as just bike projects, but in reality, these projects also bring just as many improvements for pedestrian safety and accessibility. And then lastly, we know that capitalizing on these infrastructure investments proves to strengthen economic and business development opportunities. Next slide, please. So we've completed almost 14 miles of projects to date. We currently have 11 miles under construction, and we have more than 36 miles of bikeways in final design, just about ready to go out to construction over the next, over really the next year, year and a half, which I'll talk about in a minute. So overall, we have been able to program $342 million in funding to the Bike EAP. It consists of $186 million in TransNet and $156 million of external funding and grants. So that's about a 45% leveraging rate. And should the 2 proposed budget amendments be approved, recommended and approved next week by the board, that leveraging percentage will get even better. Next slide, please. So a quick recap of our recent progress. We opened 2 projects this year, Inland Rail Trail Phase 3 in January, and then of course the Rose Creek Bikeway opened in May of 2021. And we have 3 projects that are currently under construction. The traffic calm bike boulevards of Georgia Mead and Landis. Georgia Mead is scheduled to open this fall, Landis in the spring of 2022. And then last but not least, the 4th and 5th Avenue bikeways, which are on schedule to open in the spring of 2022, but we're working hard with the city to figure out ways we might make that happen a little bit faster. Next slide, please. So our upcoming bikeway projects, we have 5. These 5 projects are fully funded. They're about 15 miles, and these will all be advertised for construction before the end of 2022. So in fact, the first 4 projects will be out to bid in the next 6 months. Pershing, we actually had our bid opening earlier this week, went very well. We're happy with how that's turned out. So super excited to get that project rolling very soon. And the next project up would be Barrio Logan later this year, Border Bayshore and Imperial Avenue bikeways coming shortly after that, either early part of 2022 or in spring of 2022. And lastly would be Inland Rail Trail Phase 3, which we will have out to bid in late next year. Next slide, please. So on to kind of the meat of what we're talking about today and the future of the Bike EAP. So again, our goals are figuring out how to complete the EAP, address some of our programmatic construction cost increases, and come up with some funding strategies, which I'll go over in more detail here in just a minute. Next slide, please. Just a quick note on some of the challenges in design and construction where we've seen our biggest cost increases. Of course, we see lots of cost increases that are due to permitting delays and rising construction costs. But these 2 images illustrate some of the other challenges that we've come across that we didn't necessarily fully anticipate at the time we came up with the budget estimates for these projects back in 2013. One of the bigger ones, you can see an example on the right, is the new stormwater requirements that the region has. So these are big, expensive elements. They provide obviously a lot of benefit, but nonetheless, they do cost extra money. And then working in some of our more established neighborhoods that are already built out, we do run into a lot of utility conflicts. And then we've had many cases where we have unsuitable and contaminated soils. So if we want to look for the silver lining in this, with these existing projects, we do have quite a slate of lessons learned that will better inform our project budgeting moving forward. It will give us the information to have more realistic project cost estimates and budgeting as we build our next set of projects. Next slide, please. Okay, the short-term strategy. So all of these projects that we're advancing will help the program and the agency maximize the environmental and social equity benefits of the projects to these surrounding communities, or these communities and the surrounding communities that they're in. So SANDAG staff looked for other existing fund sources and identified over $2.1 million of federal RSTP funds that could potentially be reallocated from the Comprehensive Multimodal Corridor Plan, the CMCP program, to fund these active transportation projects. So important to note that all 11 of the CMCP corridor plans that the board approved in September of 2019 will still be completed given these proposed budget revisions. So the proposed FY22 budget amendments are shown in more detail in your attachment 4, and in summary consist of the following actions. For Howard Bikeway, we are looking to reprogram $250,000 to complete work to obtain federal environmental clearance. So getting NEPA for this project will allow the program to access more funding options and the ability to advance construction. The University Avenue Bikeway Program amendment includes an additional $1 million added to cover recent increases identified in our latest engineer's cost estimate. So important to note that this, the University Bikeway program or project, sorry, has already received over $14 million in outside federal and state grant funds. So being able to add this $1 million to bring that project over the line and leverage that is really important in our amendments here. And then next is the Orange Bikeway. So this amendment includes adding approximately $5.1 million to the budget for construction. So this amount is made up of $4.3 million in federal ATP grant funds and new funding of $858,000 in the federal RSTP to cover the required grant match. So again, leveraging that 858 against the bigger chunk of the federal funds is what our goal is here. And then lastly, we ask that the Transportation Committee and the board accept the recent active transportation grant funds into the budget. So that includes $4.317 million for the Orange Bikeway. And then Inland Rail Trail, it's another project that we got over $12 million in federal funds. So that amendment includes adding $14.38 million to the budget for this year. And a little over 12 of that is from the federal ATP grants, and then $2.3 million in local funds. And then lastly, $169,000 of local TransNet funding to cover our near-term right-of-way costs. So in summary, from these actions, the total amount of funding being moved into fiscal year 22 budget is $18.6 million. 16.4 of that is coming from state ATP-based grants and from our pursuing these competitive funds. $2.1 million from the federal formula RSTP funds that are being transferred from the CMCP program. And lastly, the $169,000 that we're leveraging out of TransNet that really brings a lot of this package of projects over the line and allowing us to bring the construction faster. So that's the short term. Next slide for our long-term strategy. So we estimate that we need about $112 million to complete the EAP projects as they appear in your attachment 1 from the blue section in your attachment 1. So how are we proposing to do this? So to continue funding projects and provide our critical local match dollars, we need to continue to develop a long-term funding strategy. And this proposal includes 2 potential TransNet extension ordinance amendments and a reprioritization of future EAP projects, for which additional details on these actions will be brought back to you over the coming months. But the first part of the proposed amendment is to increase the percentage of funding allocated to the Bicycle Pedestrian and Neighborhood Safety Program, BPNS, out of the TransNet fund. So this currently sits at 2% of TransNet. So that's 2% off the top goes into BPNS. So depending on how revenues come in and how much people are spending, each additional percentage point that might be added to the BPNS program, we estimate that generates about $3 million a year. The second part of that proposed amendment would be to consider moving the bike program into the major corridors program. So the existing ordinance already includes complete streets provision and direction to accommodate travel for people walking and biking. And that applies to all new projects in the region funded with TransNet, including those in the major corridors program. So rethinking this aspect of how we do things and kind of revisiting that and strengthening that could really go a long way to breaking down some of our more traditional siloed approaches where significant bike and ped projects are too often only pursued as separate projects. So moving forward, we think there are many opportunities to integrate multiple modes of travel into these major corridor programs, the CMCP and our mobility hub projects. So from a practical point of view, moving into the major corridors program simply gives us more flexibility to fund and implement active transportation projects. And then the third part of our strategy is to take a fresh look at reprioritizing future EAP projects to better align our social equity goals with future opportunities that will put us in a better position to best leverage state and federal funds. And so we really, we anticipate that more outside funding opportunities will arise over the next several years. They kind of already are, but we anticipate even more that will be available for projects that will help implement these, and get our investments going into these historically underserved and underfunded communities. Our initial prioritization process really gave us a good set of projects that focused on maximizing potential ridership. And so fortunately, a lot of that overlapped with the more dense parts of our region, where we find some of those communities that we're talking about that we really need to deliver more of the social equity benefits. So moving forward, we don't expect that we would need to completely revamp it, but we do want to refresh, use current data, integrate this current needs, and put a social equity lens on our prioritization process, which we did not have originally. And then lastly, by doing this, that will help ensure that the regional bike network and the early action program are consistent with the goals of the 2021 regional plan. Next slide. Okay, next step. So pending action by the Transportation Committee at your meeting today, the board is scheduled to consider this item next week at September 24th meeting. Moving forward over the next few months, we're engaging several stakeholder groups and our social equity working group to ensure that all of these groups are involved in our efforts related to the bike EAP, the project reprioritization, and are helping shape our long-term funding strategy. So in the fall, we'll be back with more specific TransNet amendment options for you to consider. And it's anticipated that any proposed amendments will move forward starting in January of 2022. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you. We have two members of the public who want to speak. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. First, we'll have Andy Hanshaw, who will be followed by Randy Torres Van Black. Andy, you can go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Vargas and members of the committee. I first want to, this is Andy Hanshaw, Executive Director with the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition. And I first want to thank Hassan, Chris, and the SANDAG staff for bringing this item forward and for the years of hard work that they've put into building a safe, complete, connected bikeway network throughout the region. Want to offer our full support for funding to complete these projects as described today for both short and long-term needs, and to accelerate the build out of our regional network. It's really important that we do this to enhance not only the current bikeway network, but also the future and the future of the regional plan moving forward. I particularly want to commend SANDAG for seeking and acquiring outside grant funds that have been successfully acquired to make these projects happen and to cover any cost increases and the needs to build out the network. I also want to commend the plan for serving our historically underserved communities. This is a very high priority to make those communities safer and more protected, for giving people more options to ride in their daily lives. This also supports the climate goals and the greenhouse gas reduction goals. And I want to emphasize and thank Councilmember Elo Rivera for his comments that it's important to consider the Bikeway network as a key factor in the reduction of those GHG numbers. I also want to offer and ask for support to improve the process moving forward for future design and input, and to improve any cost efficiencies for the bike plan, and to work closely with cities to accelerate and to eliminate sort of a lot of the delays that have happened in the past. And hopefully these funds and this plan to complete the network soon will help improve that process. And finally, I'd like to just conclude with support for this complete network that will encourage more ridership, more climate action, and support for the Vision Zero plan that's been mentioned today, and to reduce serious fatalities and deaths on our roadways to zero, and a complete built-out network all across the region for safe, connected bicycling will help do that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Next, we'll have Randy Torres Van Vleck, who will be followed by Nevo Magnesi.
Good morning, SANDAG board members, committee members, staff, and members of the public. My name is Randy Torres Van Vleck. I'm the Director of Policy and Planning at the City Heights CDC. I'm happy to be here today to support the staff recommendation on item 5. We're especially excited to see advancement of the University Avenue Bikeway, which will connect City Heights, Eastern Area, and La Mesa, while improving dangerous intersections like Estrella and University, 54th and University, and Choyas Parkway and University. City Heights CDC and the City Heights Built Environment Team are thrilled to see what we call the Orange Avenue Family Bikeway advanced as well. This project connects many schools, parks, and homes throughout City Heights. Our team and committee members have been actively participating in community-led planning for this project since 2012. That was nearly 10 years ago. So any policy and direction of resources that can reduce the timeline of these needed investments is appreciated. And looking at ways to reduce timelines for these upcoming projects will help us achieve our climate action goals. One element of this action is to consider a reprioritization of the second tier of projects in the early action project list that's in your agenda item. We support this effort and hope that projects like Fairmount Avenue corridor improvements can be advanced. As someone who grew up in Castle Park neighborhood of Chula Vista and works in Mid-City, I can say there's a general lack of north-south connection in our South Bay communities outside of the Bayshore Bikeway, which is a coastal project. Looking at active transportation enhancements in this area that complement the future Purple Line alignment will help create a multimodal network that will help us achieve the goals of the regional plan. We thank staff for this creative and bold approach to advancing projects that improve walking, biking, skating, and rolling. We encourage the board to support the series of actions laid out here by the staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 3 hands up remaining. Next will be Jesse O'Sullivan, followed by Noah Harris. Jesse, you can go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Jesse O'Sullivan, and I'm Policy Counsel at Circulate San Diego. First, I want to thank staff and Executive Director Ekrada for their leadership in bringing this item forward. Investment in bicycle infrastructure is an investment in saving lives, in our climate, in public health, and in air quality. So I want to give our full support for this item. In addition, Circulate San Diego, in partnership with the San Diego County Bicycle Coalition and Climate Action Campaign, sent a letter yesterday raising some concerns with how money has been spent in the past. The concerns are this: we should be ensuring that the money is spent expediently and efficiently. In the past, community engagement for bicycle projects dragged on for years. Community engagement is a good and important part of the planning process, However, it can't be allowed to delay projects for years on end. SANDAG should set a limit, say 6 months, on the amount of time that it will spend engaging the community before it presents the best possible project to the board for approval. The second concern is that in an attempt to please everyone, SANDAG projects are sometimes overbuilt. While projects like the 4th and 5th Avenue bike lanes will be attractive, they are taking many years to construct, in stark contrast to the quick and successful 30th Street bike lane. For every year of delay, lives are placed in danger. SANDAG staff should be directed to prioritize safety and speed of implementation in future designs. I want to be really clear that this is not about spending less money on active transportation. It's about doing the most with the money that we have so that we can have a fully connected bike network in San Diego so that people can safely get around. Thank you for your time and thank you for bringing this item forward.
Thank you, Jesse. And Noah, I'm sorry, you dropped off my screen there for a minute, but I see you back now. So go ahead with your comments and then we'll go on to Noah Harris.
Hi, my name is Novo Magnesi. I'm with Bike San Diego, and I just wanted to echo some of the comments from Andy and Randy and express my support for SANDAG continuing to improve its bike early action program. And also I wanted to commend SANDAG staff for getting some of those ATP grants. For those who don't know, these are very competitive and a lot of bike projects that were submitted to the state were not funded. And so it's really impressive that SANDAG was able to secure those. And I just kind of want to remind the members of the board that, this is, you look at the presentation and you see finances, but really we're talking about lives here. 14 people in San Diego County this year have lost their lives biking on our streets. And some of them have lost their lives biking in places that are due to be SANDAG projects, such as the Bershing Avenue Bikeway and Washington Street. And so it's really important that we continue to make sure that these projects happen so that way we can save the lives of people in our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next will be Noah Harris, followed by Nicole Burgess, and Nicole will be our last speaker.
Good morning, board. This is Noah Harris with Climate Action Campaign calling in strong support of this proposed budget amendment to fund several key bike projects. We sincerely thank the staff and the board for seeking to prioritize and fully fund this set of bike projects. It's a reflection of SANDAG's renewed commitment to sustainable modes of transportation and increased safety for bike riders following decades of auto-centric transportation planning and frequent cyclist deaths, which are tragic and avoidable, as Novo was saying. These short and long-term funding strategies are exciting first steps for the future of biking in San Diego. It is clear that this funding is urgently needed. 8 years into EAP, less than 14 of the 77 miles of the promised bike network are open to the public. However, we know that even with the build out of the entire bike EAP network, we won't come close to achieving the City of San Diego's Climate Action Plan mode shift target for bikes. Aggressive mode shifts towards bike, walk, and transit are essential to stopping the climate crisis. As such, we offer the following recommendations. First, we want to echo our partners' calls for process improvements to accelerate timelines for delivering bike projects so they do not take nearly 10 years, such as timeframes for community input that are reasonable and projects that are designed in a cost-efficient manner. Also, we call on SANDAG to complete the EAP network as soon as possible and to then expand it in partnership with local jurisdictions, especially the City of San Diego, to ensure the CAP's 2035 mode shift target for bikes will be achieved. The city and SANDAG should prioritize these investments in historically underinvested communities of concern, with the least access to safe and sustainable modes of transportation, which are needed for cleaner air and better access to the region's job centers. And I want to appreciate Chris's emphasis on this point in the staff presentation. Again, thanks so much to the staff and board for this imaginative solution, and we're happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Noah. And next will be Nicole Burgess, who will be our last speaker.
Good morning, Sandag. Thank you, Chair Supervisor Nora Vargas and board members here today. And Hassan, thank you for having the time to listen to all of us, the stakeholders, the bike community, and bringing this forward. And Chris Kluth, staff, for your presentation. And as many of the speakers support this initiative and hope the board will too. I look forward to the conversations for the fall stakeholder group to really have input to how we can maximize and be more cost efficient and get these bike projects rolled out quicker. And just want to offer a couple short-term, long-term strategies for this as we move forward. Looking at reprioritization of EAP projects is important, but we also need to drastically look at a new regional bike plan for the region that actually incorporates a watershed planning through how some of our bikeways can follow through our waterways, and we can improve our water system as well. San Gabriel does an amazing job of planning for 134 miles along their waterways. So something we should look towards. I want to give kudos to SANDAG for working with agencies in San Diego for moving these forward. I highly suggest that SANDAG look at some of the most dangerous areas. Vision Zero is, thank you for bringing that as a priority. Some of the most dangerous ones are in those Caltrans right-of-ways. So really looking at those priorities for SANDAG to look at that grade separation around those highways, and then letting our city do a quick build along those. I could use Nimitz as a perfect example. We just need to have some grade separation around I-8, and then the city can do a quick build along the 2-mile corridor. So that can quickly build out a better network. I'd like to ask SANDAG to really look, and I'm not sure if this can be done through this funding measure, but implement wayfinding across along all mid-coast transit stations. So we know when we have people biking and walking to transit, we can increase our ridership 7 to 12 times. Wayfinding is extremely important. It will help the city navigate to reprioritize those large corridors in the UTC area. But for me, I just want to know how to get to the station, even if I do have to cross 3 lanes of highway. I know it's not the best, but it'll get us in the right direction. And then fourth, I would like the SANDAG to look at a healthy community incentive program to really incentivize and encourage folks and residents to go by bike. And then lastly, I just want to address the EAP projects. One of the EAP projects was Pack Highway. It has not been started. It is not in this list, and we need to start that next list. So I thank you for looking at the next list, but Pack Highway is one of those ones that is extremely important to our region and our corridors. I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your support on this recommendation by staff.
Thank you. We appreciate it. I just wanted to mention that before we go to member comments, that this item is going to bring great investments to our communities of color, particularly, and that currently, most of them don't have access to safe bike networks. So it's really important that as we move forward with our Vision Zero goals and build safe bike networks, so we continue to uplift the needs of the local residents where the projects are proposed. I do have a question for staff. When these projects are being designed, how are we incorporating trees and native plants in the design phase?
That's a great question, and we hear that from the community all the time. And so in some projects, we have been able to incorporate landscaping and not very many trees. It really, honestly, it comes down to a question and the challenge of maintaining them in the long term. And so outside of areas that don't have that are in a business improvement district or a maintenance assessment district, it's hard for the project to include long-term funds for maintenance. We're not really set up that way, so it falls back to the local jurisdictions. And depending on where it is, we've had different levels of success getting those in, but it really is probably more of a matter of coordination and prioritizing funds all around.
So maybe as we're trying to meet our greenhouse reduction, what we can do is there's so many of us who are part of those jurisdictions that maybe we can think outside the box. And as these designs are coming forth, we can think about how we can make sure that that's part of the design and the solution as we're moving forward. With that, thank you so much. With that, I'm going to turn it over to first Vice Chair Campillo, then Councilmember Hilo Rivera. There's a couple of folks, so I'm just going to start with those two.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Chris, for the presentation. First, just want to commend SANDAG's efforts to really greatly improve the region's bicycle network. The callers mentioned that, and it's very clear that this network is important to our region. And of course, the work that's been done to leverage the financing opportunities to continue to move the projects forward, that's just as important. Without the money, we can't pay for it. I do have a question. It's been mentioned that staff will be coming back to the committee with an updated bike EAP prioritization criteria. Does staff have an estimate for when that reprioritization of those projects will come back to us?
Well, we're going to start to work on that with our groups this fall. And so it'll be coming back late fall, probably starting to come back to the policy committees late fall and over the early part of the winter.
Understood. Okay, I'm happy to hear that. The reason I ask and the reason I'm curious about the future of these projects is that you know, many of the projects fall under where the funding is. There's, you know, numerous projects, of course, listed in they're green in attachment 1 for this item. And one of these projects in green is special importance to me. And I really think the region representing District 7 in San Diego, along the San Diego River, it's the West Valley Crossing San Diego River Trail Bridge connection, which would connect Sefton Field at Presidio Little League over the Mission Valley YMCA. It's project number 48. And the project extends the 3.75 mile estuary segment that goes to the ocean across the river to connect it right over to where the Riverwalk golf course is. And of course, we know that's now about to be the Riverwalk project. It's a new project that's transit-oriented development, and it's providing funding for construction of bike trails there as part of the San Diego River Trail Master Plan, which ultimately is we're hoping to connect all the way out into East County and up into the unincorporated county. And so the West Valley Crossing was included as a priority project years ago on that list, but it fell short of the $200 million cap at the time. And so, of course, I want to partner with SANDAG to find the necessary funding to move that forward because of how that is going to play a major part in not just connecting and creating a big trail for my constituents, but also sending the signal that transit-oriented development is going to have a partner with SANDAG, and ultimately we can create more similar projects that will hopefully reduce greenhouse gases, create amazing bike trails along our natural resources. And so just wanted to bring that up for you. And I look forward to expanding and improving our entire regional bike network, of course. And Chair, I'm happy to make the motion to recommend staff's proposal.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilmember Hilo Rivera, and then Commissioner Chu, and then Councilmember Lara Cobalt, and then I think that's it.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Chris. I want to start by giving a special shout out to the built environment team in City Heights for all the work that they've been doing to make the Orange Avenue Family Bikeway a reality. We heard Randy call in. That group is a really special example of what community leadership and vision looks like. And I definitely want to make sure I also commend SANDAG for improving over the years the way that you've partnered with the built environment team, and to see their hard work come to life is really, really exciting. Obviously, for selfish reasons, I appreciated it's not only in the district that I represent a lot of that work, but these are roads that I ride on, and to see them become safer year by year is really, really an exciting thing. Chris, your comments about investments in bike safety being investments in pedestrian safety could not be more true. You just need to walk along the streets where we've made safe for biking to realize that it feels and is safer for the people who are walking there. I think about when I'm walking my dog in the neighborhood and when those investments have been made. And so really what this is about is making people-oriented roads rather than car-oriented roads, and we all benefit from that in a variety of ways. So just a lot of appreciation here. Chair, I don't know if you need a different motion from the different committee, or if it's just a second, procedurally happy to do either. But that concludes my comments.
Yeah, for this one, we're only going to meet a motion. Only the Transportation Committee will be voting. So if you would like to make a motion, there hasn't been. You can go ahead and make one.
So Councilmember Campillo made, or Vice Chair Campillo made the.
I missed it. Sorry. Yes. So you can make the second. Sorry.
Okay. Great.
We need to, can we please verify that that second is from a Transportation Committee?
Oh,
member?
yeah, it can't be for me.
All right, why don't we just go ahead and hold off. So Vice Chair Campillo made the motion, and thank you though, Councilmember Hilo Rivera. Let me go ahead and go to Mr. Shu.
Thank you. I'm not on the Transportation Committee, so I'm sorry I can't second, but I would if I could. I want to make a few comments. First, I want to thank all the bike advocates for their testimony today. And I want to also thank that SANDAG has the early action program for biking. That's an important emphasis on biking and increasing our mode share for biking in our region, which I've been advocating for a long time. My comments, and Chris, you don't have to answer these today, but perhaps at the board meeting when we have this item come up again, which is I'm concerned about outcome measures, and that is as we build more bike infrastructure. You know, unfortunately, we often look at just the accident and fatality rate of bicycle accidents, but I'm also interested in some other data, which is, are we really changing mode share? And I know as you prioritize for equity, which projects are going to help those who really need safer bike routes? So as we look at these projects, we need some data. Often we look at bike projects that are grand and go up and down the beautiful coast or some other beautiful area, which is great, but I'm not so sure it really increases a mode share, particularly for those who are trying to get to work or simply want to ride to the grocery store. So to me, we need some other additional data. And I know for the city of La Mesa, we're having a difficult time addressing our climate action plan because we don't have good data to meet our mode share shifts that are in our plan. So I hope that's something that we do work into our planning process, as well as equity issues, that we look at these detailed parts. Another benefit from getting that kind of data is to really find the impediments for bicyclists. So it may be a particular corner, it may be a fence, it may be something else on a signal stop that is a major impediment for bicyclists and certainly for families and others to use our bikeways. And I think it was also pointed out by some commenters that we have a lot of bikeways going north and south. I think we should be looking at some bikeways going east and west. That would help communities like certainly the ones in the East County, as well as City Heights and other communities, Chula Vista and other communities. We need some of these. And I think the idea of using some of our waterways as routes for those, for a new bikeway, a new bike plan is a very good idea. And lastly, I want to make a quick comment about Vision Zero. Vision Zero is mainly centered on facilities, and I hope it really centers on that, particularly for those in our most impacted communities, people of color and poor communities. Vision Zero should not be something that we go to law enforcement and ask for greater enforcement of bike violations. We just need simply better facilities and safer facilities to meet our Mission Zero goals. Thank you very much for allowing me to make these comments, even though I'm not a member of the Transportation Committee. Thank you.
No problem. That's why this committee is here doing it together today. Councilmember Cabal, and then Councilmember Edson, and then Mayor Dedina.
Yes, thank you, Chair. In the presentation, it was noted the unforeseen stormwater costs. And that got me thinking that there is the American Rescue Plan. And since these proposed projects are in jurisdictions that all get money from the American Rescue Plan that has money for stormwater projects, maybe there's some collaboration there that can occur. That's my comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Edson?
Yes, I had withdrawn my hand because my what I wish to say was actually covered, but I actually fully support this item, and that's all I say, other than I would be happy to make a second.
Fantastic. Thank you for the second.
You're welcome.
Mayor Dedina?
Thanks. First, thanks for the presentation. I want to thank all the bicycle advocates for all the great work they do. You know, as someone who's been riding my bike along the Bayshore Bikeway since 1971, before it was a Bayshore Bikeway, and then bike commuted downtown along the Bayfront when it was actually the area around NASCO was probably better than it is now, which is unfortunate. And then I have seen the evolution of the Bayshore Bikeway. I'm just a huge fan of obviously expanding bike routes, and was just alarmed so the acrimony and sort of like negative, all the hostility about bike paths and how people don't use them. It was in the media. The media loved gleefully to wrongfully cover. Because when I see the Bayshore Bikeway, and just Jack, just to highlight, that is heavily used by bike commuters. In fact, guys in the Navy, you see the SEAL team guys with giant backpacks riding their bikes up north to go to three or four different naval bases from Imperial Beach. So heavily used. My kids have used it to go to the Silver Strand State Beach. Lifeguards at the Strand are riding their bikes from East Lake down through the Otay River and then connecting onto the Bayshore Bikeway. So people are going downtown and taking that free bike ferry, which is great. So it is very heavily used, and obviously we need bike trails everywhere. San Diego, so some of us old school folks may remember when in the 80s when San Diego was considered a leader in promoting bicycling, and somehow we got left behind. So yeah, just a huge supporter of this. Hopefully we can figure out ways to make it cheaper so that, you know, we don't have these huge cost per mile expense. And I think that's the problem with CEQA, when CEQA actually makes things harder for the environment. That's one of the reasons we need to reform CEQA, right? Like, so it doesn't cost, you don't spend 75% of your project doing a CEQA analysis to figure out how to save emissions by putting in bike lanes. So with that, just want to thank the entire SANDAG team who have been leading on this for so long, and our robust civic sort of partners and nonprofit partners for this, and all of the elected officials that have been so supportive of bike lanes. And I know it's been hard, but one thing I'll say in the Bayshore Bikeway, because I ride my bike on it a lot and walk on it and then watch people riding. It is incredible to see the diversity of people from all walks of life, every group in San Diego, every cultural background, every income group are on that bike trail, from the $5,000 to $10,000 bikes to the bikes that my dad would repurpose from the garbage. And, you know, like, it's just the South Bay in its element. It's beautiful. It's actually amazing. And it's packed. It's absolutely packed on the weekends. So that's a good sign that people in San Diego love great, safe bike trails. And I look forward to continuing to support those. And I'll obviously happily support this.
Thank you. Councilmember Zito?
Thank you, Chair. And like the others, I would like to thank everybody who came and spoke today, and also to staff for bringing this forward. And as was mentioned by other board members, being creative and finding ways of how to finance this, because I do think there is significant opportunity here and a great benefit and enhancing and more quickly building out our cycling infrastructure. I did want to reemphasize a little bit about what Councilmember Hsu said, though, which is I also concur that data is important. And when we look at this, just want to make sure we continue to internalize that there are, just like there are multiple modes of transportation, there's actually multiple ways people ride bicycles. And one of the things that I found concerning a little bit is recently there seems to be a fair amount of focus on just a single way, which is like the family people that need to go from point A to point B or just get the grocery store. And just want to remind all of us that there is a significant community of long distance commuters out there, of which I've been a part of. I've ridden my bike down to the SANDAG board meetings when we were meeting in person, which is a 25-mile trip one way. And if the infrastructure isn't there to do that, I'll get off my bike and get back in a car, which would not be good. And there is a notable number of people that do those types of commutes, and their needs are different. So as we design our facilities, I would just like us to keep in mind that we should be trying to meet the needs of all of the cycling users that are out there. And in particular, since the long range commuters, what they really need realistically is just around traffic calming and making sure that the roads are safe to use on and they can use the roads. And relative to Mayor Dedina's point, that's the cheapest thing we can do, is just keep traffic calm and the roadways safe. But fully supportive of this and excited to see more infrastructure getting built. Thanks.
Thank you. So I just want to make sure that I just emphasize that. Thank you everyone for your comments and for your engagement on this item. We do have a motion by Vice Chair Campillo and a second by Councilmember Edson. Just to clarify, only Transportation Committee members will be voting on this item. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the clerk so that Ms. Webb can go ahead and call the roll of the Transportation Committee only.
Can I ask a question? I need to ask our legal. Do we need to read this into the record, or is showing the recommendation sufficient?
Showing the recommendation, a motion can be to adopt staff recommendation, which I believe the motion was.
Okay. Thanks, John.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you very much, Chair. The San Diego County Regional Airport Authority is absent. For the City of San Diego, Vice Chair Campillo.
Yes.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Chair Vargas.
Vargas, yes.
Thank you. I apologize. Is Supervisor Anderson still on?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, he's not on the Transportation Committee, ma'am. It's me.
Oh, thank you very much. I need to contact the clerk. I think we've had some changes that I.
Yeah, so we're only doing the Transportation Committee right now.
Okay, thank you. For the East County, Councilmember Mendoza.
Councilmember Mendoza, yes.
Thank you. For Metropolitan Transit System, Councilmember Montgomery Stepp.
Montgomery Stepp, yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Councilmember Zito.
Zito, yes.
Thank you. For North County Inland, Mayor McNamara.
McNamara, yes.
Thank you. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson.
Edson, yes.
Thank you. For the Port of San Diego, Commissioner Benelli.
Benelli, yes.
Thank you. And for South County, Councilmember Sankey.
Sankey, yes.
Thank you very much. And that motion does pass unanimously with those members present.
Thank you so much. So moving on, and just for clarifying the record, I'm going to ask the Regional Planning Committee meeting if they can indulge me on voting on item number 4 again. I know that there was a motion and a second, and the motion, can you read the clerk, can you read who made the motion and who made the second on item number 4?
Yes, ma'am. Originally, Councilmember Sankey had made the motion, but Councilmember Sankey is on the TC and not the RPC. So I'll need a member of the Regional Planning Committee to restate the motion.
And Councilmember Sankey apologizes for the mix-up.
No worries, and I'm sorry for not catching that in the moment.
All right, so could somebody from the Regional Planning Committee make a motion on item number, recommendations on item number 4, please?
This is Gastel. I can make the recommendation.
Yeah, and this is Terry. I was glad to do that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Gastel and a second by Gasterland. And then we're going to go ahead and now ask only the Regional Planning Committee members to vote on this item. So Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll.
Yes, thank you very much. And just for the record, I want to be clear that the new motion is to approve the staff recommendation, same as the original motion.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. For the City of San Diego, Councilmember Elo Rivera.
Elo Rivera, yes.
Thank you. For the County of San Diego, Supervisor Vargas.
No, it's Supervisor Anderson, ma'am.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't have the.
I got you. No problem. Supervisor
Thank
Anderson.
you so much. I think I have the wrong information on my lists.
Aye.
All right, Supervisor Anderson.
Aye.
Thank you very much. For East County, Councilmember Gastel.
Gastel, yes.
Thank you. For North County Coastal, Mayor Gasterland.
Gasterland for North County, yes.
Thank you very much. North County Inland is absent. And for South County, Mayor Salas.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And that does pass unanimously with those members present.
All right, with that, I am going to turn over the gavel to my Vice Chair, Mr. Campillo, as I have to leave for another commitment. But I thank you, everyone, and thank you for the flexibility with today's meeting. I think it was a wonderful meeting. So Vice Chair Campillo.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate everyone for being here today. We will now move on to item number 6, the SANDAG Clean Transportation program update. And I believe we have a presentation from Ms. Susan Friedman.
Yes, great. Good morning, everyone. And this will be a co-presentation with Jeff Hoyos and myself, who make up the Clean Transportation team. We're pleased to be here to talk to you today to provide this update. And this is on page 62 of your agenda packets. So I'm going to go into some of the big picture aspects of clean transportation, and then Jeff's going to dive into what we're working on today. And that's going to be followed up with me looking ahead at the regional plan. And there it is, this slide. So clean transportation, it's a critical part of California's vision for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and improving air quality. When we talk about clean transportation, it means a lot of things. We've heard about this already today. It includes biking, includes walking, it also includes electric vehicles. And when I speak of electric vehicles or EVs, I'm referring to both plug-in electric vehicles as well as hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. And these can all be cars, trucks, and buses. So as the regional plan reimagines our transportation future to one that's faster, fairer, and cleaner, these zero emission vehicles are integrated into the 5 big moves. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of policy and market forces guiding electric vehicle growth. At the federal level, we have the bipartisan infrastructure bill that includes $7.5 billion for charging stations and $7.5 billion for clean transit or zero emission transit. The state's also been very active with regulations to electrify cars, trucks, and buses, as well as rideshare vehicles like Uber and Lyft. And then last year, the governor released an executive order calling for all new passenger vehicles to be zero emission by 2035. So based on these state goals, we developed a regional EV gap analysis with partners through what we call the Accelerate to Zero Emissions Collaboration, or A to Z, that Jeff will talk about in a minute. Next slide, please. So this is an important figure. This is from the regional EV gap analysis, and it really shows the challenges we're facing today in the region. It's where we're at today with vehicles and infrastructure types, and where we think we need to be in 2030 based on these aggressive state goals. So in the region today, there's about 69,000 electric vehicles, and with continued growth in vehicle availability from the automakers, as well as price parity in the next couple of years, we do expect to see over 700,000 EVs in 2030 in the region. And it's critical that we also have the infrastructure available to support this transition. And so that'll be hydrogen fueling stations as well as EV charging infrastructure. And this is to keep up with the vehicles that consumers and businesses are buying. Most automakers have made significant commitments in this area to go electric. We've also heard from Uber and Lyft, who have pledged to go 100% electric by 2030. And the transit agencies are planning to be electric by 2040. So it's really an all hands on deck in terms of infrastructure support. It'll come from federal, state, regional, and local government, as well as the automakers, fueling providers, SDG&E, and others in the private sector. We think it's through partnerships and collaboration that we're going to be part of the solution. Next slide, please. So this next chart, I have a lot of charts, but this is the last one for me. This captures the variety of SANDAG activities underway right now and what's expected in the very near term through the regional plan. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but it's really an exciting time, and there's a lot of opportunity to partner with government, industry, and local communities. The projects on the chart here, they really focus on 3 areas. They're developing regional strategies, providing incentive programs, as well as innovative pilots and investments. And I think we have a great foundation of mature programs to build from, and then these activities will all help us be shovel ready with projects as federal and state funds come available. So now Jeff's going to go ahead and walk through some of our current program efforts, and then I'll jump back in with what's next. Jeff?
Thanks, Susan. So as you just mentioned, there's lots of work to do, and we're working on filling these vehicle and infrastructure gaps by leveraging regional coordination and preparing our region to take advantage of the coming funding through various planning efforts. The first project and partnership I'd like to introduce is Cali VIP. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Cali VIP is a partnership between the California Energy Commission, the San Diego County Air Pollution Control District, and SANDAG, and funds a $21.7 million rebate program for publicly accessible EV chargers. This is a 3-year program that opened last October and was oversubscribed within the first day. The Center for Sustainable Energy is the program administrator, and in the last year, they have approved 573 rebate applications to reserve over 3,800. This will help support over 3,800 chargers in the region. Of the 573 applications, 38% of those applications are coming from communities of concern, which is great because we had a minimum goal of 25%. And these communities of concern are defined by the California definition of disadvantaged communities and low-income communities. Later this year, year 2 rebates will be released and go to those currently on the wait list for level 2 charging. In addition to the rebates that SANDAG, APCD, and the Energy Commission have funded, SANDAG has funded some additional technical assistance to help with Cali VIP applications and general EV questions if you live in a community of concern, as well as workforce development via the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Training Program, which is a certification for licensed electricians and a requirement for all Cali VIP projects starting this month. We'd like to grow that pool of licensed electricians in the region, and so that's why we're helping support EVITP training. Lastly, we have AB 1236, which is compliance with permit streamlining for the installation of EV chargers. Next slide, please. AB 1236 compliance helps accelerate EV charging deployment in the region because we know industry looks to deploy in regions that have permitting streamlining as it reduces project costs and overall timeline. Local jurisdictions can help accelerate EV charging by using available resources and assistance from the Governor's Office of Business and Development, Business and Economic Development, as well as SANDAG's EV expert. According to streamlining as defined by GoBiz, 4 out of the 19 jurisdictions in the region are streamlined. That includes the county, Escondido, Del Mar, and National City. This map on the right shows you where we are currently with streamlining in green, in progress in yellow, and red is not streamlined at all. So we have 7 that are in progress and 8 have not started. So please reach out to either myself, Susan, or the EV expert so we can help you get your jurisdiction streamlined. Next slide, please. Last thing for Cali VIP here is this slide demonstrates that public property owners in all jurisdictions in the San Diego region have taken advantage of the rebates available through Cali VIP. While some jurisdictions have more than others, it is important to remember that this program operates on a first come, first served basis. So there may have been more demand or desire for charging in a specific jurisdiction. However, funding ran out. As I mentioned, we ran out of funding within the first day. So this does not include those currently on the wait list. And as years 2 and 3 funding is released, these numbers will continue to go up. Next slide, please. Up next, we have Accelerate to Zero Emissions, which is a regional collaboration established by SANDAG, San Diego Gas and Electric, the County of San Diego, the City of San Diego, and the County Air Pollution Control District to combat air pollution and climate change by increasing EV adoption and infrastructure investment. We recently completed and published a regional gap analysis, which establishes regional goals, which Susan talked to earlier today, and identifies barriers to adoption, like EV permitting and consumer awareness. Thank you to the board members that came out to the press event in July to help promote the release of the gap analysis. Building off that momentum, this fall we are kicking off the development of an EV strategy to identify key actions and a near-term implementation plan the region can use to accelerate EV adoption. You can help shape the strategy by having your staff participate quarterly as an advisor to the A to Z EV strategy development. To join, please visit a2zsandiego.com or reach out to myself or Susan. Next slide, please. All right, so up next, we have another strategy SANDAG is working on. It's the Regional EV Charger Management Strategy. SANDAG and the North County Transit District were awarded a Caltrans planning grant to develop an operational strategy for public charging at public lots. So that means it could be at a mobility hub, a transit station, a park and ride, or any other public parking lot. Kimley Horn and Energetics have been selected to help develop this strategy, which will identify consistent management practices for installation, operation, and maintenance of EV chargers. For SANDAG, that means an EV charging roadmap that establishes best practices for design, installation, and handoff to public agencies like NCTD. For other public agencies, this strategy will help identify best practices and policies that, when implemented, will help streamline public EV charging and access to charging throughout the region. As part of this strategy, we are working with public agencies to develop an EV charger service provider bench so that EV charging station procurement process can be streamlined throughout the region. Next slide, please. All right, so far, the focus of these projects has been on passenger vehicles and the associated infrastructure. This slide summarizes the efforts in the medium and heavy duty vehicle space, since we know buses and trucks will be required to transition to zero emission by 2040 and 2045 respectively. In August, the Energy Commission approved SANDAG's first of its kind application to develop a blueprint that will identify key actions needed to transition the region's goods movement and transit fleets to zero emission. SANDAG partnered with the Port of San Diego to address these needs, and using input gathered through regional and stakeholder engagement, the blueprint will evaluate regional routes, available technology, and workforce, among other considerations, to prioritize projects and actions that will benefit the region and inform future SANDAG investments. Once we received the notice of proposed award, SANDAG supported the City of San Diego and the Environmental Health Coalition to apply for and receive a foundation grant that will fund EHC's involvement in development of the blueprint. This is great because we will gain greater representation from some of the region's most impacted communities by trucks and buses. Next slide, please. My last slide here looks to the future of clean transportation. SANDAG is interested in learning more about technologies that can accelerate transportation electrification and recently released a request for information to learn more about wireless dynamic charging, or simply put, charging while you're driving. We know that battery range and weight can be limiting factors to transitioning to an electric vehicle, so SANDAG is seeking information from industry to learn more about wireless charging, which has potential to extend vehicle range and reduce battery size. This would allow for lighter vehicles and more goods or people to be transported. After responses to the RFI are received, SANDAG will develop a work plan and a more detailed schedule to release a request for proposals to develop a wireless pilot. We would like to establish partnerships next year with a goal of starting a pilot sometime in 2023. So in the spirit of looking to the future, I'd like to hand it back over to Susan to walk us through the proposed 2021 Regional Plan Clean Transportation Program efforts.
Great. Next slide, please. So thanks, Jeff. And through the regional plan and the Accelerate to Zero Emissions collaboration, we're working to make San Diego a national leader in electric vehicles. This chart shows about $2 billion worth of investments through 2050 that will support our flexible fleets, our transit, our mobility hubs, as well as complete corridors. And more information about this is included as attachment 1 to the staff report. And looking at the first 2 gray rows, they show incentives for clean vehicles as well as EV charging stations. And these are both measures in the Sustainable Community Strategy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from passenger vehicles. In terms of the investments in transit and goods movement, they'll be informed by the blueprint grant that Jeff spoke of that we just recently received from the Energy Commission, as well as local plans by the transit agencies, the Air Pollution Control District, and the port. The regional plan also includes an e-bike incentive, which is not on this table, but it is included as part of SANDAG's travel demand management strategy. Staff are currently exploring a pilot e-bike incentive project to launch later this fiscal year, and then to expand upon that and scale up in future years. Next slide, please. I did want to talk a little bit more about the new vehicle incentive program that's proposed. And this again is one of our Sustainable Community Strategy measures. This program would provide rebates for residents in the region to assist in the purchase or lease of about 100,000 plug-in electric vehicles or fuel cell electric vehicles between now and 2035. The program design will prioritize greater access to clean vehicles. We want to focus rebates toward low and moderate income households, which we've seen have had a lower participation rate in the state rebate program so far. We also want to explore incentives for both new and used vehicles to, again, widen access to clean vehicles to more people. In doing this, we're going to seek partnerships like we did for the charger rebate program that Jeff spoke of. And that way we're going to be able to leverage our local dollars and bring in more state funds or federal funding. Currently, we're working on a Caltrans planning grant to apply for next month. They'll help us with the research and design of this program. And the County of San Diego has offered to be our partner on that project. Next slide, please. So I did also want to talk a bit about hydrogen. When we talk about going electric, it's not just plug-in electric vehicles. Fuel cell electric vehicles powered by hydrogen are also part of this global transition to electric. Locally, we're going to start seeing more hydrogen-powered vehicles on the road in the very near future. And if we're looking at the map on the right, the H in green that's kind of in the middle of the map shows that one hydrogen station that's open right now, and it's in Carmel Valley for passenger vehicles. And below that, a little over to the right, is an H in blue. And that shows a station that's in construction in Mission Valley that should be opening in the next year. Then in yellow, we see 4 more stations, and they've received grant funds from the California Energy Commission and are in the permitting phase right now. And those are for passenger vehicles as well. But up at the top of the map, the final H, that's kind of turquoise, is for North County Transit District. We are planning a hydrogen fueling station in Oceanside to open up in 2023, as well as the purchase of 8 fuel cell electric buses in 2022. So looking at this as a whole, and from the regional plan investment table, SANDAG's investments in zero emission buses and goods movement, as well as the supporting infrastructure, are going to help the transit agencies as well as freight operators choose whichever zero emission path makes sense for them. Next slide, please. So to sum these efforts up, the key takeaways, I think, on clean transportation are that there's a lot of work to be done by both the public and the private sectors. But SANDAG, we're starting from a solid base of programs, and I think we'll be positioning the region well to compete for federal, state, and private investment as things come available. And in the end, this is all to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution that come from vehicles of all kinds. It's an exciting time to be part of planning in this, and we plan to succeed through collaborations, partnerships, and innovation. So with that, that concludes our presentation, and Jeff and I are happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now first move to public comments. Clerk, are there anyone from the public with their hands up? And if there is a member of the public who wants to make a comment, please raise your hand at this time.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I see 3 hands up. First will be Nicole Burgess, who will be followed by Carolina Hernandez. Nicole, you can go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you again for the time. Thank you, Chair Rowe. I just wanted to, we just went from an actual strategy for climate, and now we're EVs. So EVs, are they really the solution? I once heard, don't let the solution be the problem. Please take time to understand the negative effects of electric vehicles. When it's not the solution we need here in San Diego. So we're investing $2 billion investments. Thank you, staff, for the presentation. Flexible fleets, where are the bikes? Do the bikes get to charge in? Are there access bike racks that we can all access? So I have a lot of friends, a lot of people are choosing this e-bike. So the e-bike is our new innovative technology to be, Hassan, you say it, aggressive leaders. We have an opportunity here in San Diego to shine and really embrace our outdoors. Jack Shu, you say, what is our health outcome? What is the outcome of these projects? Of more EVs, more people going in these metal boxes that you're trapped in, and now we're going to be trapped in tunnels. So Hassan, I really, really ask you, please make sure that people walking, biking, rolling, scootering, electric cargo bikes are able to access these tunnels, or perhaps better yet, make these tunnels only for those folks. We have to get out of our cars. If we continue to have people that need to park to take transit, we are going to fail. And I want you all to really take a minute to look over to Mayor Anne Hidalgo in Paris. And she's now running for president of France. She has transformed that city. She has gotten her people out of the city. She has taken away thousands of parking spots. They don't need the car. They're the social activity, the beauty of being out here in San Diego is why I'm here at SANDAG on Friday mornings to join you, because there is nothing better than commuting in our city, in our region. And Serge, that NASCO area is horrible. City of San Diego, let's get it built now, soon, because we all deserve to be able to go from National City to downtown, a beautiful 6-mile commute on an electric bike, or from Choyas Creek, NASCO to all the way up into City Heights to La Mesa to Jack Shu. So please, let's really consider this $2 billion investment and show me where bikes fit into this picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Next, we'll have Carolina, who will be followed by Tim Bailish.
Good morning again, board members and staff. My name is Carolina with the Environmental Health Coalition and the San Diego Transportation Equity Working Group. We thank the staff for the thorough report. We're here to elevate some issues with this report that is very much focused on single occupancy vehicles that are not going to address congestion issues, nor are going to resolve issues in our communities, because it turns out our communities don't have a lot of access to this type of vehicles. And while there are programs, what is really going to support the region is massifying the way we connect to jobs, to the supermarket, to after school programs. And so we have concerns with the focus on single occupancy vehicles. And we want to elevate that the study needs to be focused on heavy duty, both buses and freight, which we know we're going to be working on together with SANDAG on this. But it seems to be, as the solutions are very single occupancy vehicle driven. We also want to elevate that hydrogen is not something that we endorse. It is not a pathway towards solutions, because a lot of hydrogen is produced using methane, gas fuel, fossil fuel. And so that actually will create more issues for our communities. And so we want to focus on zero emission or electrification of the transit system, and not hydrogen. It's not a solution. So those two things we look forward to continue to work with staff in massifying our transit system and really focusing on that rather than increasing the number of vehicles on the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. And our final speaker will be Tim Bylish. Tim, you're self-muted at the moment. You can go ahead and unmute your own mic. There you go.
Apologize. Thank you. This is Timothy Bylash. I am a physician and scientist living in San Diego County. I want to again commend all the committees of SANDAG for the intense effort to educate us, particularly on the newer technologies and ideas that are coming on board. I'd like to highlight one aspect of the transportation issue having to do with the Northeast and East counties, the more rural counties, areas of the county, and that there's a lot of commuting traffic that goes back and forth. And I would just urge the committees to consider how wireless electric vehicle charging might fit into that picture, and to continue your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chair, we actually had just one additional hand go up, if that's okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Nevo Magnesi, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. I just wanted to echo some of Nicole's comments. I appreciate SANDAG staff mentioning the starting an electric bike incentive program. And I really commend that, but I think that it has to be more than just, oh, let me just mention this and not have any information about it. That's really what we're seeing at the state and the federal level. We're finally starting to see some bills at the state and federal level of incentivizing electric bikes, but even then it's an afterthought. Currently, the current bill at the federal level is that once your income is $75,000, you can no longer take as much of a rebate from electric bikes. Meanwhile, if your income is $400,000, you can still take the full rebate on your Tesla, right? So we're really not talking about these things equitably quite yet. We really need to talk about electric bikes as being a replacement for people's gas-powered cars. It's not just a replacement for people who were biking before. It really can flatten those hills and make a really, really big difference in how people get around our region. And it really needs to be one of the priority modes of travel that we're starting to talk about at SANDAG. Thank you.
Thank you. And Vice Chair, that does conclude the comments.
Thank you, Clerk. Now we'll move to members' comments. Are there any members who have their hands raised and wish to comment? I see Councilmember Elo Rivera. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Thanks for the presentation here. I just have one question related to electric bikes, which were discussed. There's a lot of, I don't want to fail to mention, there's a lot of good stuff here and I appreciate the work. With respect to electric bikes though, I'm curious what sort of plans are being made to ensure, and this does get to the equity to a certain extent, that those bikes are made especially accessible to parents with small children who may be able to, attach a child seat to them, also to seniors. So if we think about, if we're really trying to make electric bikes a way to shift folks out of cars and onto electric bikes, we need to be kind of extra intentional about ensuring that access is provided to those who see bike riding as something that is not necessarily something that they can do. I hear that most often from folks with small children and from seniors in our community. So I'm curious to what extent we're creating intentional programs or efforts to make sure we connect those who don't see bike riding as an option for physical reasons or other reasons to make sure that they have access.
Sure, thank you for that question. First, with the e-bike incentive, the reason it wasn't in the table is that it's listed in another table in the regional plan on the next page. But just for reference, it calls for a $5 million investment by 2025 and $35 million overall to start with this plan. So staff between Mobility and Innovation Department, as well as the iCommute team, are exploring how to develop the pilot. Social equity is one of the priorities in that. They're currently talking with staff at the county who have a pilot going on in Supervisor Fletcher's district called Pedal Ahead. Whether that's what we do or not, they're still in the exploratory phase to launch something later this year. But from what I've been told by those staff, and we can follow up with you offline, is that absolutely is really trying to get to people that haven't had access to a lot of other programs. As well as tie in with the bike program that's being made, the bike lanes that are being developed. So we want to make this a successful program that we can then scale up across the region. So we can get you more details offline as well.
Thanks, Susan. I appreciate the response. That concludes my questions, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Supervisor Anderson.
Yes, thank you very much. When looking through all this, have we looked at the cost of a kilowatt? And the reason why I say that is when using charging stations, the cost can vary quite dramatically. And if you look at 42 cents a kilowatt, that's roughly $5 a gallon when you convert it to miles per kilowatt in what we're competing with as far as gas cars and gas vehicles. But I didn't know if you had looked at that and looked at how the grid's going to handle all this extra use on the grid, whether it's charging a bike or a car. But I know that I put solar in my home. I have 42 panels. I do about 7 kilowatts an hour. And when I drive my Chevy Bolt, if I max it out, it's the full use of my solar for the day. And so, I just wondered if you'd looked at the economics of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is another area of the challenges that we face. So with the charger incentive program that opened last year, we're incentivizing chargers at public places as well as workplaces. And the idea with workplace charging is that people can charge in the middle of the day when it's off of the most renewable energy content on the grid and have cheaper access. I'd say with our investments with mobility hubs, where we're planning for some charging depots to support flexible fleets or for buses, that we're tying together with integrated renewable energy resources so that we plan for something a little more holistic that's resilient with the grid, but also it also helps keep costs down because we do have expensive electricity here. And that's something that we talk to SDG&E as well as the community choice energy providers about. So that's all kind of part of our planning and design. We are thinking about that and trying to incentivize the best way to go about the installation of infrastructure and when's the best time for people to use charging. But we don't answer that alone. Yeah, that is definitely a team effort.
Thank you very much. I would just finish by saying that that cost per kilowatt is really important when you think about the equity angle and you're asking people to invest in electric vehicles. but then it costs them much more in fuel. So thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. I do not see any other panelists or attendees with their hand up. Thank you very much, Jeff and Susan, for your presentation. And that brings us to the conclusion. Oh, that was an info item. There no motion was needed. And so that brings us to the conclusion of our meeting today. Our next Transportation Committee meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 1st, 2021 at 9 a.m. Look forward to seeing my committee members then. And for the members of the Regional Planning Committee, really appreciated getting to hear your comments today alongside you. And that will be, your meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 1st, 2021 at 12:30 p.m. And members of the Border Committee, very great having you here today with your excellent comments and questions as well. And your meeting is scheduled for Friday, October 22nd, 2021 at 12:30 p.m. Thank you all very much. And this meeting is